Do you ever feel like a precious vase shattered into 1,000 pieces, believing you are irreparably broken? There is a quiet, secret pain in this feeling, isn't there? A belief carried deep within that you were somehow flawed beyond repair, that the cracks from your past, the mistakes, the heartbreaks, the moments of profound loss have rendered you unworthy, incomplete. You walk through the world holding these pieces together with sheer force of will, terrified that if you relax for even a moment, you will fall apart completely. You see others who appear so whole, so seamless, and the weight of your own fractures feels heavier still. What if those cracks are not signs of damage, but the very places where the light is beginning to shine through? What if the story you've told yourself about being broken is not the true story at all? Tonight, we will not try to glue the pieces back together with the harsh adhesive of expectation or the pressure of perfection. Instead, we will embark on a different kind of journey. We will learn to trace the lines of the fractures with the gold of awareness. We will listen not to the relentless noise of our thoughts, but to the wisdom held within them, and within the quiet spaces in between. Here, in the stillness of the next few hours, we will explore the ancient paths of Zen and Buddhist wisdom, not as rigid doctrines, but as gentle invitations to see ourselves and our lives in a new light. This is a space for your wariness, a space for your questions, a space for the parts of you that you have hidden away. There is no need to fix anything here. You only need to rest, to breathe, and to listen. Together, we will discover that you are not broken. You are, in fact, awakening. And that awakening begins with the simple, radical acceptance of what is. It begins with our first story, the story of a cracked pot and the perfect flower. In a small village, nestled at the foot of a mist-covered mountain, lived a very old woman. Her face was a beautiful map of her long life, her hands gnarled but gentle from years of work. Every morning, for as long as anyone could remember, she would walk from her small hut down a long winding path to the river at the edge of the village. And every morning, she carried the same tool for her task, a long, sturdy pole balanced across her shoulders, with a large clay pot hanging from each end. One of the pots was perfect. It was smooth, immaculately formed, and held its full measure of water on the entire journey back to her home. The other pot, however, was not so perfect. A long time ago, a thin, almost invisible crack had appeared on its side. And so, on every walk from the river back to the hut, this pot would leak. Slowly, steadily, drip by drip, it would lose half of its water along the winding path. For 2 full years, this continued. The old woman would arrive home with 1 full pot of water and 1 half-empty pot. The perfect pot, as you can imagine, was very proud of its accomplishments. It felt a sense of flawless purpose, of fulfilling its duty without fail. It looked across the balancing pole at the other pot with a silent, ceramic sense of pity. But the cracked pot was miserable. It was deeply, profoundly ashamed of its own imperfection. It felt like a failure. It saw the trail of wasted water it left behind each day, and its clay heart ached with the sorrow of its own inadequacy. It was made for one purpose to carry water, and in this, it could only do a half a job. The shame became so heavy that one morning, as the old woman was about to fill it at the riverbank, the cracked pot spoke. "I am so sorry," it whispered in a voice that sounded like dust and despair. "I must apologize to you. For these past 2 years, I have only been able to deliver half of my load because this crack in my side causes water to leak out all the way back to your house. Because of my flaws, you do all of this work, and you don't get the full value for your efforts." The old woman's eyes softened. She smiled, a gentle expression that crinkled the lines around her eyes. And she reached out, patting the pot's clay surface as if it were the cheek of a child. "Did you not notice?" she asked, her voice as soft as the river's current. "As we return to the hut, I want you to look closely at the path." And so, on the journey back up the winding trail, the cracked pot did as it was told. For the first time, it lifted its gaze from its own leaking and looked at the ground beside the path, and it saw something astonishing. Lining its side of the path, and only its side, was a breathtaking ribbon of wildflowers. Vibrant blues, fiery oranges, and sunny yellows bloomed in a profusion of life and color, kissed by the morning sun. They grew in a perfect line, following the trail from the river all the way to the old woman's front door. When they arrived home, the old woman set the pots down and turned to the cracked one. "Did you see the flowers?" she asked. "I have always known about your flaw. I knew you leaked. And because I knew, I took advantage of it. I planted flower seeds on your side of the path, and every day, as we have walked back from the river, you have watered them. For 2 years, I have been able to pick these beautiful flowers to decorate my table and bring joy to my home." She paused, her gaze deep and full of a profound tenderness. "Without you being exactly the way you are," she said, "there would have been no beauty to grace this path or my home. Your crack did not make you worthless. It made you the source of all this life." How many of us feel like that cracked pot? We spend so much of our lives measuring ourselves against an imaginary idea of perfection. We look at our own anxieties, the past failures, the perceived shortcomings, the parts of our personality we wish were different, and we feel a deep, burning shame. We believe that these flaws diminish our value. We believe they make us less than. We walk through our days acutely aware of the water we are losing, convinced that we are failing at our one true purpose. This story offers us a different way of seeing. It is an invitation into one of the most profound and healing concepts from the Zen tradition, a concept known as wabi-sabi. It is a worldview centered on the acceptance of transience and imperfection. Wabi-sabi is the beauty of things that are imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. It is the wisdom in the modest and the humble. It is the quiet appreciation of the cycles of nature, of growth and decay. In a world that screams for more, for better, for flawlessness, wabi-sabi whispers that there is a deep and touching beauty in the authentic, the weathered, the vulnerable. It sees the beauty in a worn wooden table, a frayed piece of cloth, or a chipped ceramic bowl. And it sees that same profound beauty in us, in our own cracks. The teaching of the cracked pot is not that our flaws are secretly strengths in disguise. It is something far more radical. It is that the very idea of a flaw is an invention of the mind. It is a judgment we impose upon reality. The pot was not flawed. It was simply a pot that leaked. That was its nature. The leaking itself was neutral. It only became a source of shame when the pot compared itself to the perfect pot, when it created a story of failure around its own nature. The old woman, in her wisdom, did not judge. She saw the pot for what it was, and she worked with its nature, not against it. She did not try to patch the crack. She did not discard the pot. She accepted its reality fully, and in that acceptance, she found a way to co-create something beautiful. This is the heart of awakening. It is not about fixing ourselves into a state of perfection. It is about accepting ourselves with such profound compassion that our very nature cracks and all, becomes the fertile ground for grace to grow. Let's rest with this for a moment. I invite you now to find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down. Let your body feel heavy and supported by the surface beneath you, and just breathe in and out. No need to change your breath, just notice it. A gentle rising and falling dot. Now, I want you to bring to mind one of your own cracks. It doesn't have to be your biggest or your deepest, just a quality you carry that you have long labeled as a flaw. Perhaps it is your sensitivity, a tendency to feel things too deeply in a world that tells you to be tough. Perhaps it is a shyness that makes it difficult to speak in groups. Perhaps it is a past mistake that you carry with you, a memory that makes you cringe. Just hold this perceived flaw gently in your awareness. Don't push it away. Don't analyze it. Simply see it as if you were the old woman looking at the crack in her pot. See it without the story of failure you have attached to it. See it without shame. Now, in your mind's eye, can you visualize the path of your life? See it winding behind you, all the way from your past to this present moment. And as you look along that path, I want you to consider a gentle question. Without forcing an answer, just let the question hang in the air of your mind. Is it possible that because of this crack, you have been watering flowers along the way without even realizing it? Did your sensitivity, which you labeled a weakness, allow you to offer a unique and profound comfort to a friend in pain? Did it allow you to see the beauty in a piece of music or a sunset that others missed? Did your shyness, which you saw as a social failure, lead you to become a deep listener, creating a safe space for others to share their own stories? Did it lead you to the quiet, rich inner world of books and creativity? Did that past mistake, which you carry as a brand of shame, become the source of your greatest empathy? Did it give you humility and a wisdom that you could never have learned from seamless success? Don't search for an answer, just hold the possibility. Imagine that trail of leaking water, your perceived flaw, and see if you can imagine a single, beautiful wildflower growing beside it. A moment of connection, an act of kindness, a flash of insight, a surge of compassion. The metaphor of the leaking water pot is a symbol for our own sacred vulnerability. We live in a culture that worships the sealed container, the perfect vessel. That loses nothing, but life itself is a process of exchange, of giving and receiving, of messiness and flow. It is our vulnerability, our openness to being affected by the world, our very cracks, that allow us to truly connect, to love, to feel, and to grow. A perfectly sealed pot can give nothing, and it can receive nothing. It is complete, but it is also sterile. It is the crack that allows for the water of life to spill out and nurture the world in ways we may never fully comprehend. For the final moments of this reflection, let go of the story, let go of the path, let go of the flowers. Simply come back to your breath, and with each exhale, imagine you are releasing a little bit of that old, heavy story of being broken. With each inhale, breathe in a sense of simple, gentle acceptance for being exactly as you are in this moment. A vessel, cracked and unique, perfectly suited for the journey you are on. You are not broken. You are simply watering flowers along the path. And as we continue our journey tonight, we will find that this path is often flooded, not just by the water we carry, but by the relentless river of our own thoughts. The next step in our awakening is to learn not how to block this river, but how to sit beside it with peace. And so, we arrive back where we began, in the stillness. Do you remember that feeling? The feeling of being a precious vase shattered into 1,000 pieces. The quiet, secret pain of believing you were irreparably broken. Feel the memory of that weight for a moment, and now, feel the space around it. Feel the air you are breathing. Feel the gentle stillness that has been here beneath the stories. All along, the pieces have not been magically glued back together. The cracks have not vanished. That was never the promise. The promise was that you might learn to see them differently. Tonight, we have walked a long path together. We met the cracked pot and learned that our flaws can be the source of unintended beauty. We sat by the river of our own consciousness, realizing we don't have to be swept away by the current of our thoughts. We held the empty cup, creating space for new wisdom to enter. We released the weight of our unsent letters, offering ourselves the forgiveness we so freely give to others. We invited the ghosts of our past for tea and discovered they were just lonely parts of ourselves, seeking acknowledgement. We felt the sting of the first arrow and learnt the wisdom of not shooting the second. We tended to the unshakable flame of the lantern within, a light that no storm can extinguish. We stood as the mountain, allowing the weather of life to pass without becoming it. We saw the wisdom in kintsugi, the golden repair, understanding that we become more beautiful and resilient not despite our breaks, but because of them. We learned to bend like the bamboo, to allow our muddy water to settle, and to awaken to the precious urgency of this one fleeting life. We have come home at last. To ourselves, the journey of awakening is not about arriving at a destination where you are finally fixed. It is not a summit you conquer. It is an unfolding, like the lotus, which is perfect in the mud, perfect in the water, and perfect as it opens to the sun. It is a continuous process of learning to trace the fractures of your life with the gold of awareness and self-compassion. Tonight, you have listened. You have created a sacred pause. You have allowed these stories and these silences to water seeds of peace within you. The invitation now is a gentle one. Tomorrow, when the world rushes in with its demands and its noise, may you carry a little of this stillness with you. When you feel the familiar shame of an old crack, may you remember the wildflowers. When your mind feels like a raging river, may you remember you can simply sit on the bank and watch it flow. When you feel broken, may you remember the glimmer of gold. This is not the end. It is simply a rest along the path. The practice is not just in the listening, it is in the living. If you have found a measure of peace here tonight, know that this space is always here for you. You are always welcome to return, to rest, and to listen again. Consider subscribing to continue this journey with us. As we explore, we have rested for a moment with the truth of our own beautiful imperfections, seeing how the cracks we once saw as shameful might be the very channels through which grace enters our lives. This acceptance is a profound relief, a homecoming. But what happens when the water, the very flow of life and thought, feels not like a gentle watering of flowers, but like a torrential, overwhelming flood? What do we do when our own mind feels like a raging river, threatening to sweep us away? In its chaotic current, there is an exhaustion particular to this struggle. It is the deep weariness that comes from constantly fighting against the flow of your own thoughts. You spend your days, and especially your nights, building dams. You try to block out a painful memory, push away an anxious thought, or suppress a feeling of sadness. You build these walls with distraction, with denial, with sheer, white-knuckled effort, yet the river of your mind only seems to rise higher. The pressure builds, the water seeps through the cracks, and you live in constant fear of the moment the dam will break entirely. You believe that peace lies on the other side of this internal battle, that if you could just stop the river, you could finally find rest. But the wisdom of the path shows us another way, a way that does not involve fighting, but flowing. It begins not with building a bigger dam, but with the courage to simply walk to the riverbank and watch. In a monastery perched high on a mountainside, there lived a young monk named Anand. He was diligent and devoted, but his mind was a place of great turmoil. He was terrified of the powerful emotions that surged within him, his anger, his grief, his fear. He saw them as enemies, as invaders in the clean temple of his mind. He spent his meditation hours trying to wrestle them into submission, leaving him more agitated than when he began. One autumn, a great storm was predicted to roll in from the sea. The sky grew dark for days, the wind moaned through the pines, and the older monks went about their duties with a quiet, focused calm. But Anand was filled with a growing dread. The storm outside felt like a terrifying reflection of the storm inside him. He feared it would shatter the monastery's peace and his own fragile sense of control. Finally, unable to bear the anxiety any longer, he went to his master, an old monk with eyes that held the stillness of a deep forest pool. "Master," Anand said, his voice trembling slightly, "the storm is coming. The river in the valley will flood. I am afraid. What should we do? How can we possibly stop the water? How can we protect ourselves from its fury?" The master listened, his gaze unwavering. He did not offer words of comfort or strategies for defense. He simply said, "Tonight, when the storm is at its peak, you will not stay here. You will take your cloak and a lantern, and you will go down to the river. Do not try to stop it. Do not brace against it. Simply find a large, stable rock and sit. Your task is to do nothing but watch what the river carries." Anand was filled with terror. This was the opposite of what he wanted. He wanted to bar the doors, to hide, to fight. But a command from the master was not to be questioned. And so, as the first heavy drops of rain began to fall, he wrapped himself in his thick woolen cloak, lit a small lantern whose flame danced nervously, and made his way down the slippery path to the valley floor. The sound was the first thing that struck him, a deafening roar that was both the wind and the water, a single, immense voice of chaos. The river, usually a gentle, chattering stream, was now a churning brown monster. It tore at the banks, its surface boiling with violent energy. Anand found a large granite boulder set back a little from the edge, and with his heart pounding in his chest, he sat. For the first hour, he was consumed by fear. Every surge of the current felt like a personal threat. He watched as the river carried the evidence of its destruction. A farmer's fence post, tangled in weeds. A great branch torn from an ancient tree. Clumps of earth and stone churning in the murky depths. This, he thought, is the nature of things. Violence, destruction, chaos. My mind is just like this. This is the truth I have been trying to escape. He felt a profound despair, a confirmation of his deepest fears, but he stayed. He remembered the master's instruction. Simply watch. As the second hour passed, a subtle shift began to occur within him. His fear, having been given no resistance, having no wall to push against, began to subside. It was still there, but it was no longer screaming. It became a low hum in the background of the storm's roar. He was no longer fighting the experience. He was simply having it. And then he started to see more. In a momentary lull, his lantern flame caught a flash of impossible color in the brown torrent. A cluster of late-blooming pink blossoms, torn from a bush upstream, swirled gracefully in a small eddy before being swept away. A few moments later, a single, perfect red leaf, like a drop of blood, danced on the surface of the churning water, a small point of beauty in the midst of the chaos. He watched it until it vanished. The storm raged on, but Anand's inner world was becoming still. He watched the river carry everything without preference. It carried the broken branches, and it carried the blossoms. It carried the mud, and it carried the red leaf. The river itself was not angry or violent. It was simply powerful, and it was carrying what had been given to it. It made no distinction between what was ugly and what was beautiful. It simply held it all and let it all pass. As the dawn approached, the storm began to break. The rain softened to a drizzle, and the sky in the east turned a soft, bruised purple. A break in the clouds appeared, and for a few breathtaking moments, the full moon, which had been hidden all night, shone down. Its perfect silver disk was reflected in the still raging water. Anand looked into the river and saw the mud, the debris, and, held within it all, the serene, unshaken face of the moon. When he returned to the monastery, soaked and tired but strangely calm, the master was waiting for him. He simply nodded, and Anand understood. The core teaching of this story is the profound wisdom of non-resistance. In the Buddhist tradition, this is not a passive resignation, but an active, intelligent, and deeply compassionate engagement with reality as it is. We suffer so deeply because we believe our thoughts and feelings are personal failings that must be managed, controlled, or eliminated. We believe we are the river and that we are the flood. But this wisdom invites us to take a different position. To be the witness on the bank. Your consciousness, your mind, is the river. It flows all on its own. It has been flowing since the day you were born and will continue until the day you die. It is a natural force, and like any river, it carries all sorts of things. It carries beautiful memories, moments of joy, brilliant ideas. These are the blossoms and the reflection of the moon. It also carries painful memories, anxious thoughts about the future, feelings of anger or sadness. These are the broken branches and the mud. Our mistake, the source of our endless exhaustion, is that we jump into the river and try to curate its contents. We see a broken branch, a painful memory, and we grab onto it, trying to pull it from the water. In doing so, we become entangled. We are tossed and turned by the very object we are trying to control, and we are pulled downstream by its weight. We see a beautiful blossomer, happy moment, and we try to clutch it, to hold on to it. But the current is too strong, and our desperate grasping only fills us with the anxiety of its inevitable loss. The practice of non-resistance is the practice of letting the river flow. It is the courage to sit on the bank and trust that the river knows its own way. You are not the debris. You are not the blossoms. You are not even the river itself. You are the silent, spacious awareness that can watch it all pass. The anger, the sadness, the fear, they are not you. They are weather patterns passing through you. They are objects being carried on the current. By allowing them to be there, without resistance, without judgment, and without clinging, you allow them to pass. This is a deep act of trust. It is the trust that if you allow a painful feeling to simply be, without fighting it, it will eventually move on. It is the trust that you are vast enough to contain both the ugliness and the beauty, the chaos and the peace, just as the river held both the mud and the moon. Your awareness is capable of holding your pain and your joy. Let's try to touch this experience now. In a gentle reflection, Allow your body to settle once more. Feel the weight of it, the solidness of it. You are here. You are safe. Begin by bringing your attention to your breath, that quiet anchor in the present moment. Now, I invite you to bring to your mind's eye a river. It can be any river you imagine. It could be the powerful, churning river from our story, or it could be a slow, lazy, green river winding through a summer meadow. The character of the river does not matter. Just see it flowing endlessly in front of you. Imagine yourself sitting comfortably on its bank. Feel the solid earth beneath you. You are stable. You are secure. From this place, you are simply going to watch what the river carries. As you sit here, a thought will inevitably arise in your mind. It might be a worry about tomorrow. It might be a memory from today. It might be a simple judgment, like I'm not doing this right. Whatever the thought is, I want you to gently acknowledge it, see it clearly, and then, in your imagination, place that thought on a leaf and gently set it upon the surface of the river. Now, simply watch as the current catches the leaf and carries it away. Do not push it. Do not force it. Just watch it float. It may move quickly, or it may move slowly. It may even get caught in a small whirlpool for a moment. That's okay. Your job is not to control the leaf. Your job is to remain on the bank. Watching. Another thought arises. A feeling of sadness, perhaps. Acknowledge it. Sadness. Place the sadness on another leaf and release it onto the water. Watch it go. A memory of a happy time comes. Acknowledge it, a pleasant memory. Place it on a beautiful, sun-dappled leaf and let it go. Watch as it, too, floats downstream. Continue this for a few moments. Thoughts will come, one after another. Your only task is to place each one on a leaf and watch it float by. You will notice that some thoughts are heavier, like waterlogged branches. You place them on the river, and they barely seem to move. That is fine. Let them be heavy. Let them move slowly. The practice is not in getting rid of the thought, but in the act of placing it on the river, of separating it from you, the watcher on the bank. You will get distracted. Your mind will wander. You will forget the river and suddenly find yourself lost in a story. This is not a failure. It is the nature of the mind. The moment you realize you have wandered is a moment of beautiful awakening. In that moment, gently, and without any judgment, simply return to the riverbank and begin again. Watch the next thought arise and place it on a leaf. This practice reveals the truth. You are the sky, not the clouds. You are the awareness, not the thought. By sitting on the bank, you cultivate a profound inner stillness, a refuge that is always available to you, no matter how turbulent the waters of your life may become. You discover that peace is not the absence of debris in the river. Peace is the stability of the rock on the shore as we allow this river to flow. As we cease our struggle with it, a natural clearing begins to happen. The water, no longer agitated by our thrashing, begins to settle. And in this settling, a space appears, an emptiness. For so long we have been terrified of this emptiness, and we have filled it with noise and worry. But what if this emptiness is not a void to be feared, but a vessel to be filled with peace? What if, to find true nourishment, we must first be willing to become an empty cup? As we sit on the quiet bank, allowing the great river of our consciousness to flow without struggle, a new landscape begins to emerge within us. The frantic energy of fighting the current subsides. The roar of the water softens to a murmur. And in its place, something else arises, a sense of space, a quietness, an emptiness. For many of us, this emptiness can feel deeply unfamiliar, even unsettling. We are so accustomed to the noise and rush of a full mind that its absence can feel like a void. Our lives are a constant process of accumulation. We collect information, experiences, opinions, worries, and responsibilities, packing them tightly into the vessel of our awareness. Our minds become like a room so cluttered with furniture that there is no space left to move, no air left to breathe. We feel full, yet we are not nourished. We are burdened by the weight of everything we know, everything we think we know, and everything we believe we must still figure out. This is the paradox of the restless mind. It is overflowing, yet it remains deeply thirsty. It yearns for the fresh, clean water of peace, but its cup is already filled to the brim with the stale water of its own conclusions. We approach our lives, our relationships, and even our own healing with a cup that is already full. We listen to another person, but our cup is so full of what we are going to say next that their words have no place to land. We face a problem, but our cup is so full of our own assumptions and past failures that a new solution cannot possibly find its way in. We seek spiritual wisdom, but our cup is so full of complex ideas and rigid beliefs that the simple truth has no room to reveal itself. True relief, true awakening, does not come from adding one more thing, one more piece of knowledge to our already overflowing cup. It comes from the brave and humble act of emptying it. This is a truth captured in one of the most famous and potent stories in the Zen tradition. There once was a university professor, a man of great learning and renown. He had dedicated his life to the study of philosophy and religion, and had read every ancient text and modern commentary on the nature of enlightenment. He could lecture for hours on the subtlest points of doctrine and theory. Yet, for all his intellectual brilliance, a quiet disease gnawed at him. He had a map of the entire world, but had never taken a single step. He knew every word of the recipe, but had never tasted the food. Hearing of a Zen master who lived a simple life in the nearby mountains, the professor decided he would visit him to discuss the nature of Zen. He felt that, with his vast knowledge, he could have a truly stimulating debate and perhaps even point out a few things the reclusive old monk may have missed. He made the journey, arriving at a small, unassuming hut. The master, an old man with a serene presence and eyes that seemed to look right through him, greeted him with a simple bow and invited him in for tea. The professor, eager to begin, immediately launched into a display of his knowledge. He spoke of the historical Buddha, of the complexities of Nagayuna's philosophy, of the different schools of thought, his words filling the small, quiet room. The Zen master listened patiently. He did not interrupt. He simply began the ancient ritual of preparing the tea. He moved with a slow, deliberate grace, his attention fully on his task. He warmed the pot, measured the leaves, and poured the hot water. The professor continued to talk, barely pausing for breath, explaining his own theories about ego, consciousness, and the path to liberation. The master took a simple ceramic cup and placed it before the professor. Then he began to pour. The professor, still speaking, watched as the fragrant amber liquid filled the cup. It reached the halfway point, then the three-quarter mark, and then the brim. But the master did not stop pouring. The tea began to spill over the edge of the cup, running down its sides and forming a dark, spreading stain on the clean tatami mat. At first, the professor was too engrossed in his own monologue to notice. But as the stream of wasted tea continued to flow, he finally fell silent, his eyes wide with alarm. "Stop!" he cried out. "What are you doing? The cup is full. It's overflowing. No more will go in." The master paused, setting the teapot down. He looked at the professor, his gaze gentle but piercing. "Like this cup," the master said softly, "you are full of your own opinions and speculations. You come here to ask about Zen, yet your mind is already overflowing. How can I show you anything? How can you receive anything unless you first empty your cup?" The professor sat in stunned silence. The sound of the dripping tea was the only sound in the room. In that moment, he understood that all his years of collecting knowledge had become a barrier, not a bridge. The vessel he had worked so hard to fill was the very thing preventing him from tasting the tea. This story is a powerful teaching on what is known in Zen as Shoshin, or beginner's mind. Beginner's mind is not a mind of ignorance. It is not about knowing nothing. It is the practice of setting aside our assumptions, our expertise, and our certainties, and approaching each moment as if for the first time. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. The expert mind is closed. It is rigid. It has already made its decision before the evidence is presented. It filters every new experience through the thick screen of its past. When we operate from the expert mind, we do not see the world as it is. We see a reflection of our own conditioning. We do not see our partner. We see the history of all our past arguments and expectations. We do not hear our child's cry. We hear our own theories on parenting. We do not feel the raw sensation of sadness. We feel our story about why we shouldn't be sad. To cultivate beginner's mind is to cultivate a radical openness. It is the humility to say, "I don't know." In our culture, "I don't know" is often seen as a sign of weakness. But in spiritual practice, it is a statement of profound strength and courage. It is the key that unlocks the door to true learning. It is the act of emptying the cup. When your cup is empty, you can truly listen. You can truly see. You can receive the moment, fresh and new, without the stain of yesterday. This emptiness is not a deficit. It is a spaciousness. It is a sacred receptivity. When we are full of our own noise, we cannot hear the subtle whispers of intuition. We cannot feel the quiet guidance of our own heart. We cannot be touched by the simple, unadorned beauty of the present moment, the taste of water, the feeling of the air on our skin, the sound of a distant bird. The central metaphor of the empty teacup is a guide for our moment-to-moment existence. It asks us, again and again, are you open right now? Or are you full? Are you listening? Or are you waiting to speak? Are you experiencing this moment? Or are you just thinking about it? Let us practice, just for a few moments, the gentle art of emptying our own cup. Find your way back to a state of physical stillness. Let your shoulders drop. Let the muscles in your jaw soften. Let your hands rest open and receptive in your lap. I invite you to visualize your own mind as a beautiful, simple teacup. It might be made of smooth, white porcelain or rough, earthy clay. It doesn't matter. Just see it held gently in your awareness now. I want you to look inside your cup. What is in it right now? Don't judge what you find. Simply notice. Perhaps there is a layer of sediment at the bottom, old resentment or a lingering guilt. Perhaps there is the hot, steaming liquid of a recent frustration or a conversation that didn't go well. Perhaps it is filled with the lukewarm, murky water of your to-do lists. your plans for tomorrow, your worries about next week. See these contents clearly, acknowledge them. Ah yes, the worry about that email, the memory of that unkind word, the pressure of that deadline. Now, with your next out-breath, I want you to gently, and in your imagination, begin to tip the cup, just a little. And as you do, visualize some of its contents pouring out. Visualize the hot liquid of your frustration pouring onto the cool, dark earth, where it can be absorbed and neutralized. With each exhale, a little more is released. Let go of the day's conversations. Tip the cup and let the words spill out. Let go of the opinions you have been holding so tightly, your ideas about how things should be. Let them pour out. Let go of the self-criticism, the endless commentary about your own performance. Tip the cup and let it drain away. With each out-breath, feel your cup becoming lighter. Feel the space that is being created. You are not pouring these things into a void. You are returning them to the great earth of being, where they can be composted into something new. You are releasing your claim on them. You are letting them go. Keep breathing, keep emptying. Notice the feeling of spaciousness that begins to dawn within you. This is the natural state of your mind when it is not cluttered. It is clear, it is open, it is peaceful. This empty cup is not a state of nothingness. It is a state of pure potential. It is ready to receive. It is ready to be, filled with the freshness of this present moment, just as it is. It is ready for deep, restorative rest. As we rest in this newfound quiet, this inner spaciousness, we may notice that some things are harder to pour out than others. At the very bottom of the cup, there is often a thick, heavy residue. These are the old stories, the deep grievances, the unspoken words that have become stuck to us over time. Releasing them requires a different kind of practice. It requires us to look at them directly, to feel their weight, and to find a way to consciously and ritually let them go. We must now turn our attention to the weight of these unsent letters. In the quiet spaciousness of the empty cup, we find a sense of peace, a profound restfulness. But as we sit in this stillness, we may become aware of what remains. At the very bottom of the vessel, there is often a thick, heavy residue, like dried tea leaves that have fused to the ceramic. These are the things that couldn't be so easily poured out. They are the old hurts, the deep betrayals, the grievances that have become a part of our story. They are the words we never said, and the words that were said to us that we can never seem to forget. There is a unique and exhausting weight to carrying unspoken words. It is the weight of a conversation you rehearse endlessly in your mind, but never have. It is the weight of an apology you yearn for, but will never receive. It is the weight of the anger, the grief, and the sense of injustice that you carry for a past wrong. This burden is like a smooth, heavy stone you keep in your pocket. At first, you carry it as a reminder of the wrong that was done to you, a testament to your pain. But over time, you forget why you even picked it up. All you know is its constant, familiar weight, a presence that shapes the way you walk, the way you stand, and the way you rest. It becomes an invisible anchor, tethering you to a past that no longer exists, preventing you from ever truly moving forward. We believe, often without realizing it, that holding on to this stone, this resentment, is a way of protecting ourselves. We believe it keeps us safe from being hurt again, or that it somehow punishes the person who wronged us. But the truth of the path teaches us something very different. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. The only person being burdened, the only person being poisoned, is you. The release from this weight does not demand confrontation. It does not require forgiveness in the conventional sense of pardoning another's actions. It is a quiet, intensely personal ritual. It is an act of inner liberation. On a stretch of coastline where the cliffs crumbled into a wild grey sea, there lived a woman who was a weaver. Her hands were skilled at her loom, creating beautiful tapestries, but her heart was tangled in knots of grief and anger. Years before, she had been deeply wronged by people she loved, and the betrayal had left a wound that refused to heal. She spent her days in a state of quiet, simmering rage, and her nights in a restless sea of sorrow. The faces of those who had hurt her were constant companions, their imagined voices a relentless chorus in her mind. Her bitterness began to show in her work. The colors of her tapestries became muddy, the patterns chaotic. She felt trapped in the prison of her own resentment. One day, sitting before her loom, unable to weave, she took out a piece of parchment and a quill, and she began to write. She wrote a letter to the first person who had betrayed her. She did not hold back. She poured onto the page all the venom, all the pain, all the fury she had carried for so long. She filled the parchment with the words she had screamed in the silence of her own mind 1,000 times. She wrote of her shattered trust, her deep sorrow, and her burning rage. She wrote until there was nothing left to say, her hand aching and her breath coming in ragged gasps. She looked at the letter, this black and white record of her own poison. She had no intention of sending it. The person it was addressed to would never see it. The thought of sending it only brought more anxiety. Instead, a strange impulse took her. She went to her workshop and gathered some scraps of driftwood and twine. With her weaver's hands, she fashioned a tiny, crude boat, just large enough to hold the folded parchment, as dusk began to settle over the grey water. Casting the world in shades of violet and charcoal, she walked down to the shore. The tide was going out. She knelt at the water's edge, the cold foam washing over her feet. She looked at the letter one last time, acknowledging the reality of the pain it contained. Then she placed it securely on the tiny boat, and with a gentle push, she released it into the sea. She watched as the small craft was caught by the current. It bobbed on the waves, a tiny vessel carrying an immense weight. She watched as it grew smaller and smaller, a dark speck against the darkening horizon, until finally, it was completely swallowed by the vastness of the sea and the night. She stood there for a long time, feeling the cold air on her face, and, for the first time in years, she felt a space inside her where the burning knot of anger had been. It was not gone, but it was looser. This became her ritual. Whenever the weight of a resentment became too heavy to bear, she would write. She wrote letters of fury, letters of piercing sadness, letters of desperate, questioning grief. She wrote to those who had hurt her, to those she missed, and sometimes she wrote letters to the person she used to be. Each letter was a confession, a lancing of a wound, and each letter was placed on its own small boat and sent out to be received by the great, impartial sea. She never knew where they went. It did not matter. The ritual was not for them. It was for her. It was her way of letting go. This woman's practice is a beautiful illustration of true forgiveness. Not the forgetting of a wrong, not the condoning of a hurtful act, but the conscious decision to no longer allow that act to poison your own heart. It is the understanding that you have carried the burden long enough. The unsent letter is the perfect metaphor for this process. It allows for the full, uncensored expression of your pain, in the privacy of your own mind, on the safety of the page. You do not have to be polite or spiritual or forgiving. You are allowed to be angry, You are allowed to be hurt. You are allowed to be shattered. The expression is vital. It honors the reality of your experience. But then comes the second part of the ritual, the release. By placing the letter on the boat, the woman was performing an act of surrender. She was handing over the weight of her pain to something vaster than herself, the sea. She was acknowledging that she could not control the past. She could not change what had happened, but she could choose to stop carrying it into every new sunrise. She was choosing to set herself free. Many of us are carrying a whole library of these unsent letters inside us. They are heavy. They take up space. They keep our cups perpetually full of old, stagnant water. The practice of release is always available to us. It requires no one's permission. It requires no one else's participation. It is a gift of grace you give to yourself. Let us try, in our own way, to perform this ritual of release now. Allow yourself to find that place of stillness once more. Let your body be heavy, your breath be easy. There is nothing to achieve here. Simply an invitation to be present with your own experience. I invite you to gently scan your heart, your mind, for one of these unsent letters. Perhaps it is a resentment toward a family member, a friend, a former partner. Perhaps it is a feeling of being wronged by a system or by life itself. Do not choose the heaviest, most difficult letter right now. Just choose one that feels present. For you, one whose weight you recognize. Bring the person or the situation to mind. Allow yourself to feel the emotional charge associated with it. Notice the sensations in your body, a tightness in your chest, a heat in your face, a clenching in your stomach. Just notice. This is the energy of the unsent letter. Now, in the quiet theater of your mind, imagine you are sitting with a piece of paper and a pen, and you begin to write. This letter is for your eyes only. You can be completely, brutally honest. Start with the words, I need you to know that it hurt when ... double quotes, and let the rest flow. Don't censor yourself. If you feel anger, write down the angry words. If you feel sadness, describe the shape of your tears. If you feel let down, detail the disappointment. Pour all of it out onto this imaginary page. Get it all out of your body and onto the letter. Take your time. Empty the contents of this particular wound. When you feel the letter is complete, when you feel there is nothing more to be said for now, read it over in your mind. Acknowledge the truth of your pain. Validate your own experience. Yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt. Your feelings are real and they are valid now. Imagine you are folding this letter. Fold it once, twice. Feel its texture, its psychic weight in your hands. And as you hold it, shift the scene in your mind. You are now standing at the edge of a vast, calm body of water. It could be the ocean at dusk, a wide and silent lake, or a gently flowing river. The air is still. The world is peaceful. At your feet, a small, simple boat is waiting. Take the folded letter, this container of your pain, and place it gently inside the boat. Secure it there. And as you do, you might offer a quiet word of release in your mind. Something simple, like, I have carried this long enough, or I now release this burden, or simply, I choose to be free. With your next long, slow out-breath, give the boat a gentle push. Watch as it drifts away from the shore. Watch as the current takes it. With every breath you take, the boat moves further and further away. It does not struggle. It simply flows with the water. You remain on the shore, watching. Feel the space that is beginning to open inside you as the boat becomes smaller. It is the space once occupied by that heavy stone. It might feel tender, it might feel empty, it might feel peaceful. Whatever you feel is okay. Simply stay with the experience of watching the boat disappear. Watch until you can no longer see it. Is gone. Its contents have been offered to the vast, accepting water. The story is complete. Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, feel the solid ground beneath you. You are here, you are present, you are lighter. This practice can be returned to again and again. You may have a whole fleet of boats to send. That is okay. The path of healing is not a single event, but a series of small, compassionate acts of release. With each letter you send, you reclaim a piece of your own heart. You empty your cup just a little bit more, making space for peace, for joy, and for the present moment. But sometimes, the most difficult letters are not addressed to others. They are addressed to ourselves. They are the grievances we hold for, our own past mistakes, the parts of our history that we cannot forgive. These are the memories that haunt us, that play on a loop in the quiet hours of the night, reminding us of how we failed, of how we were broken. To find true peace, we must be willing to turn and face these ghosts, not with fear, but with a surprising and radical act of kindness. With each unsent letter we release upon the water, we reclaim a piece of our inner landscape from the grievances we hold against others. There is a clean, quiet relief in this act, and yet, so often, the most difficult letters, the ones with the heaviest postmarks, are those addressed to ourselves. The forgiveness we extend to the world can feel impossibly out of reach when it comes to our own past. We become our own harshest creditors, demanding a debt be paid for mistakes that are long gone, a debt of endless shame and regret. This is how a memory becomes a ghost. A past event, a moment of failure, a word spoken in anger, a choice we wish we could undo it, ceases to be a simple recollection. It takes on a life of its own. It becomes an active breathing presence in the architecture of our minds. It is the ghost in the machine. It haunts the quiet hallways of the night, whispering our failures back to us when we are most vulnerable. It flickers in the periphery of our vision during moments of joy, reminding us that we are unworthy of happiness. We feel its chilling presence, and we do what anyone would do when faced with a ghost. We run, we distract ourselves with work, with noise, with endless activity. We try to paper over the haunted room with new experiences. We try to exercise it, with anger or with intellectual analysis. We tell ourselves we are over it, that it's in the past. But the energy it takes to keep that door sealed is immense. The ghost, unfed but unvanquished, only grows more persistent. It rattles the door. It moans in the walls. Our attempt to deny it becomes the very source of its power. We believe we are haunted by the past, but the truth is, we are haunted by our refusal to turn and face it. There was a young monk in a mountain monastery who was tormented by such a ghost. In his early days at the temple, in a moment of youthful pride and carelessness, he had spoken a cruel and dismissive word to an elderly pilgrim who had asked him for help. The pilgrim had simply bowed his head and walked away, his face a mask of quiet sorrow. The moment was over in an instant, but for the young monk, it had just begun. The memory of the old man's face became his ghost. It pursued him relentlessly. When he tried to meditate, the pilgrim's hurt eyes would appear behind his closed lids, and his mind would fill with shame. When he chanted the sutras of compassion, his own cruel word would echo in his ears, mocking him. He threw himself into his work, chopping wood with a manic fury, scrubbing floors until his knuckles were raw, all in an attempt to outrun the memory, to exhaust it into submission. But the harder he worked, the more tired he became, and the stronger the ghost grew in his fatigue. It fed on his resistance. Finally, in despair, he sought out his master. He confessed his torment, the story spilling out of him in a torrent of self-loathing. "Master," he pleaded, "you must teach me a way to banish this spirit. Give me a mantra, a ritual, anything to make it go away. I cannot live with this shame." The master listened, his expression unchanging, until the young monk's confession had exhausted itself into silence. The master did not offer a ritual or a chant. He looked at his student with an unnerving calm and said, "The problem is not the ghost. The problem is that you are a poor host. The next time it appears, you will not run. You will stop what you are doing. You will go to the kitchen, prepare 2 cups of tea, and return to your room. You will place 1 cup for yourself and 1 for your ghost. You will invite it to sit with you, and then you will simply listen." The young monk was horrified. Sit with it, offer it tea. This was madness. He wanted a sword, and his master was telling him to set a table. But the master's gaze was absolute. And so, with a heart full of dread, the monk agreed. That night, as he sat in his cell, the familiar cold dread began to creep over him. The air grew heavy. The memory of the pilgrim's face began to form in the shadows of the corner. The monk's first instinct was to bolt, to flee to the chanting hall, to lose himself in noise. But the master's words echoed in his mind. His hands shaking so badly he could barely function, he stood up. He walked on stiff legs to the small kitchen, his breath catching in his throat. He lit the small stove, his mind screaming at him to abandon this foolish task. He focused on the simple movements, measuring the leaves, pouring the water. The small, ordinary ritual began to ground him, a small anchor in his sea of fear. He poured 2 cups of steaming green tea, the fragrant steam a stark contrast to the cold fear in his gut. He carried the tray back to his room. The presence in the corner felt stronger now, heavier. He walked toward it. He knelt, placing the tray on the floor. He set 1 cup before himself, and 1 before the shifting shadows where the ghost dwelled. His voice was a dry whisper. "See you," he said to the ghost. "I have been running from you. I am sorry. Please, sit with me. Have some tea." He picked up his own cup, its warmth a small comfort to his icy hands. And he waited. He did not fight. He did not run. He did not even try to meditate. He just sat, and he felt the full force of the shame, the regret, the self-hatred that the ghost brought with it. He let the feelings wash over him without resistance. It was excruciating, but he held his ground. He began to speak to the ghost, not to banish it, but to understand it. "You are here because of the pilgrim," he said softly. "You are here because I was cruel. You are here to remind me of my failure." As he spoke, not with anger, but with a simple, factual acknowledgement, a strange thing happened. The ghost, which had always been a monstrous, terrifying shape in the darkness, began to change. Its form softened. The terrifying presence began to lose its power. And as the monk looked closer, he saw that it was not a monster at all. It was himself. It was a younger, more frightened, more arrogant version of himself, frozen in that one moment of failure, radiating shame. It was not a ghost from the outside world. It was an exiled part of his own soul. A wave of unexpected compassion moved through him. Compassion not for the pilgrim, but for this lost, frightened version of himself. He saw the pride that had led to the cruelty, and he saw the fear beneath. The pride. "I see your pain," he whispered to the apparition. "I see your shame. You don't have to carry it alone anymore." He sat with this feeling, sipping his tea, offering the warmth of his presence to this wounded part of himself. He sat until the tea was cold and the first grey light of dawn began to filter into the room. And he realized that the ghost was gone. The corner was empty. The memory of what he had done remained, but it was no longer a ghost. It was just a memory, a sad, humbling scar, but a scar that no longer had the power to haunt him. It had been integrated. It had come home. This practice of inviting the ghost for tea is a profound teaching on the nature of healing. We believe healing means getting rid of the painful parts of ourselves, cutting them out like a surgeon, but true healing is about integration. It is about making whole the parts of us we have exiled into the shadows. Our shame, our grief, our rage do not disappear. They simply wait in the darkness, pulling on our energy, affecting our lives in ways we don't understand. They are the ghosts in our machine. These ghosts are not our enemies. They are messengers. They are parts of our own life force that have been frozen in a moment of trauma or pain. A ghost is simply an unresolved story. It haunts us because it is asking to be heard. It is asking for the ending to be written, and the ending is always the same: compassion, acknowledgement, acceptance. The ghost is the perfect metaphor for these unprocessed memories. They seem to have a will of their own. They feel separate from us. We fear them, but like any ghost in any story, they are bound to a specific place, the place of the original pain. And they are freed not by being fought, but by their story finally being witnessed with love. Let us now sit for a moment and consider being a host to our own ghosts. Find your posture of rest. Let your body settle. This is a gentle exploration, and you are in control. You only need to go as far as feels safe. Bring to mind a memory that carries the chill of a ghost, a moment of shame, regret, or failure that has a recurring hold on you. Don't choose the most terrifying ghost in your castle. Just choose one that you know, one whose quiet whispers are familiar to you. As you touch upon the memory, notice what happens in your body. The familiar clenching, the heat, the desire to pull away, to think of something else. This is the running. For this moment, just see if you can stop, just for one breath. Now, in your imagination, you are going to perform the monk's ritual. You are going to offer this ghost a cup of tea. This simply means you are going to intentionally bring an attitude of warmth and kindness to the experience. Imagine a warm, golden light filling your chest, the way warm tea fills a cup. This is your offering. Turn your attention toward the feeling of the ghost, the shame, the regret. Instead of pushing it away, allow it to be there, and silently, in your mind, offer it these words: I see you. I know you are here. You don't have to hide anymore. You are not condoning the past action. You are not saying it was okay. You are simply acknowledging the present moment pain that the memory carries. Now, ask it a gentle, curious question. What are you here to teach me? Or what do you need me to see? Don't look for an answer in words. Just listen with your heart. Often, the answer is not a concept, but a feeling. The ghost of shame may simply need you to feel the original sadness that was underneath the mistake. The ghost of regret may need you to acknowledge the fear that drove the choice. Just sit. Offer the memory the warm tea of your compassionate non-judgmental awareness. You are not trying to make it go away. You are simply changing your relationship to it. You are shifting from victim to host, from haunted to healer. Breathe into the space where the feeling is strongest. Imagine your breath is like the warm steam from the tea, softening the hard edges of the memory. Stay for as long as you feel able, and when you are ready, gently let the image go. This is a practice for a lifetime. With each cup of tea we offer to the ghosts within, we become more whole. We reclaim the lost parts of ourselves. We learn that the scar from a past wound is not a sign of our brokenness, but a testament to our capacity to heal. As we practice this, we begin to notice something profound. We see that the pain of the original event, the memory itself, is one thing, but the suffering we experience, the haunting, comes from our reaction to it. It comes from the shame, the aversion, the running. We discover that there is the initial pain, and then there is the pain we add on top. This is one of the most crucial distinctions on the path to peace. It is the wisdom of the two arrows. Now write sections 6 and 7, and make sure each one has 1800. Words show thinking, the practice of inviting our ghosts for tea, of turning towards our most difficult memories with a surprising and gentle hospitality, reveals a profound truth about the nature of our own minds. In that space of compassionate observation, we begin to see a separation. We see the memory itself, the original event, the past action, the wound, and then we see the intricate web of feeling and thought that we have woven around it. We see the initial pain, and then we see the suffering we create in our reaction to that pain. This distinction is not a matter of semantics. It is the very key to unlocking ourselves from the cycles of chronic unhappiness. It is the core of one of the Buddha's most practical and liberating teachings, the wisdom of the two arrows. Imagine a person walking through a forest. Suddenly, and without warning, they are struck in the leg by an arrow. The pain is immediate, sharp and unavoidable. It is a physical reality. The flesh is pierced, the body is wounded. This is the first arrow. It represents the unavoidable pains of human existence. Sickness, loss, accidents, the cruelty of others, the simple fact of growing old. These are the first arrows of life. They will happen to all of us. No amount of spiritual practice or positive thinking can create a life that is entirely free from first arrows. They are, as the teaching says, a part of the deal of being human. Now, an untaught, ordinary person, when struck by this first arrow, does something. Immediately and instinctively, they fall to the ground and cry out, "Why me? What have I done to deserve this? This is terrible. This is a catastrophe. My life is ruined. I will never walk properly again. The person who shot this arrow is a monster, and I will never forgive them." They obsess over the pain. They replay the moment it happened. They build a universe of despair and bitterness around the wound. In doing so, they pick up a second arrow, and they shoot it directly into the same wound. This second arrow is suffering. It is not the pain of the initial wound, but the pain of our reaction to the wound. It is the judgment, the blame, the self-pity, the fear, the anger, the rumination. While the first arrow is physical, the second arrow is mental. It is the story we tell ourselves about the pain. The first arrow is an event. The second arrow is our interpretation. The first arrow is unavoidable. The second, the Buddha taught, is optional. A student of the path, a wise person, also gets struck by the first arrow. They are not immune. They feel the same sharp, immediate, unavoidable pain. Their leg is pierced. They feel the shock and the hurt. But because they have trained their mind, they have a different response. They feel the pain, and they say to themselves, "Ah, there is pain. The body has been struck by an arrow. This is an unpleasant sensation." They observe the pain with a clear and steady mind. They feel it fully, without resisting it, but also without adding to it. They do not shoot the second arrow of panic and despair into the wound. Instead, they calmly assess the situation and say, "Now, what is the wisest thing to do? I must remove this arrow and tend to the wound." They experience the pain, but they do not experience the suffering. They feel the hurt, but they do not become the story of the hurt. This teaching is not an instruction to be cold or unfeeling. It is not about suppressing our emotions or pretending that we are not in pain. It is the exact opposite. It is about learning to feel our pain so fully, so cleanly, that we do not need to add the unnecessary and exhausting burden of mental suffering on top of it. This practice is rooted in a deep understanding of how our mind works, a concept known as which is often translated as feeling tones. Every single moment of our experience, whether it comes through our five senses or through our mind, is instantly and automatically tagged with a feeling tone. It is either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. You hear a beautiful piece of music, and your mind immediately tags it pleasant. You stub your toe, and your mind instantly tags it unpleasant. You look at a blank wall, and your mind tags it neutral. This happens preconceptually, before any conscious thought arises. Our lifelong, deeply ingrained habit, our untrained reaction, is to immediately cling to the pleasant sensations, to violently push away the unpleasant ones, and to be bored by and ignore the neutral ones. This constant, frantic dance of craving and aversion, of pulling and pushing, is the engine of our suffering. This reactivity is the second arrow. We feel an unpleasant sensation in our body. The first arrow on our automatic reaction is to tense up, to hate the feeling, to worry about what it means, to wish it would go away. We have just fired the second arrow. We feel a pleasant sensation, a moment of joy, and our automatic reaction is to grasp at it, to fear its ending, to worry about how we can get more of it. This clinging is also a second arrow, a subtle form of suffering that prevents us from simply enjoying the moment as it is. The training, then, is to learn to pause between the feeling tone and our reaction. It is to create a space of mindful awareness where we can experience the raw data of life without immediately launching into our habitual story about it. It is to feel the unpleasantness without creating suffering, and to feel the pleasantness without creating clinging. The second arrow is the perfect metaphor for this self-inflicted pain. The first arrow comes from the outside world. The second arrow comes from our own quiver. We are the archer. And the most profound liberation comes from the realization that we can simply choose to put the bow down. Let us explore this directly, not as a theory, but as an experience. Settle into your body, take a few gentle breaths to arrive in this present moment. You are here and you are safe. I invite you to do a gentle scan of your physical body. Let your awareness drift from your toes up to the crown of your head, simply noticing what is there. And as you scan, I want you to find a place in your body that is currently holding an unpleasant sensation. It doesn't have to be dramatic pain. It could be a stiffness in your neck, a tightness in your lower back, a feeling of fatigue behind your eyes, an ache in your shoulder. Just find one small, distinct area of physical discomfort. This sensation is the first arrow. It is already here, It is a reality of this present moment. Your task is not to make it go away. Your task is to simply observe it, to get to know it without shooting a second arrow. Bring your full attention to this part of your body. Instead of labeling the sensation pain or bad, see if you can investigate its actual raw qualities. Is it a sharp feeling or a dull ache? Is it hot or cool or neutral? Is it vibrating or is it steady? Is it a feeling of pressure or of tightness or of tingling? Let go of the words and just feel the pure physical energy of the sensation. Now, notice what the mind wants to do. This is crucial. As you feel this unpleasant sensation, does a thought arise? I hate this feeling. That is a second arrow. This is never going to go away. That is a second arrow. This is probably a sign of something serious. A big second arrow. This is preventing me from relaxing. Another one. Notice the emotional reaction. Does a feeling of annoyance arise? Frustration, fear, sadness? These feelings are also second arrows. The practice is this. Each time you notice a second arrow, a thought, a judgment, an emotion about the sensations, simply acknowledge it. You can even say to yourself, "Ah, a second arrow." And then, gently and without any criticism, return your attention to the raw physical qualities of the first arrow. Feel the sensation. Notice the thought, "This is unbearable." Acknowledge the second arrow. Return to the sensation. Feel its texture, its temperature. Notice the feeling of frustration arising. Acknowledge the second arrow. Return to the raw sensation. This is a profound act of undoing. You are uncoupling the raw data of life from the story of suffering. You are learning to bear the unavoidable pain with a spacious and steady mind, refusing to amplify it. With each moment that you can observe the first arrow without firing the second, you are cultivating a deep and resilient peace. You are teaching your nervous system that it can handle discomfort without going into a state of alarm. As you continue this practice, you may notice that the sensation itself begins to change. It may soften or move or even dissolve. Or it may not. The outcome is not the goal. The goal is the change in your relationship to the sensation. The goal is the freedom you discover when you realize you don't have to shoot yourself with that second arrow. When we learn to sit with the inevitable first arrows of life, when we learn to put down our own bow and arrow, we begin to cultivate an inner stability that is not dependent on circumstances. We find within ourselves a core of peace that is not shaken by the storms of the world. This peace is like a steady, unwavering light in the darkness, a lantern we can tend to no matter how fiercely the wind howls outside. Learning to distinguish between the first and second arrows is a practice of profound self-liberation. It allows us to navigate the unavoidable pains of life with a newfound grace and wisdom. We cannot stop the rain from falling, but we can choose not to stand in a downpour and complain about being wet. We learn to meet life as it is, with less resistance and more acceptance. But this raises a vital question. When the storms do come, when the first arrows are flying thick and fast, where do we find our footing? If we are not to be defined by the chaos around us, what is it that defines us? Where is our refuge? We spend so much of our lives searching for this refuge outside of ourselves. We try to build our lighthouse on the shifting sands of other people's approval, on the fluctuating value of our career, on the temporary state of our health, or on the accumulation of possessions. We believe that if we can just get these external conditions right, if we can just arrange them perfectly, then we will finally feel safe, stable, and at peace. But as we have all discovered, the outer world is, by its very nature, a storm. People change, fortunes shift, bodies age, the sands are always moving. And when we build our refuge on that which is impermanent, we are setting ourselves up for a life of perpetual anxiety, constantly bracing for the inevitable wave that will wash our foundations away. The great wisdom traditions point us in a different direction. They teach us that true refuge, the only reliable place of safety, is not something to be built outside, but something to be discovered within. It is an unshakable core of peace that is already a part of our nature, a light that is always burning, even if it is obscured by the fog of our own confusion. To find it, we must simply learn to turn our attention away from the storm and toward the tending of our own inner light. There is a story of an old man who was the keeper of a lighthouse on a tiny, jagged rock of an island, miles from the nearest shore. It was a lonely posting, and the sea in those parts was famous for its violent and unpredictable storms. One year, the worst storm in a century descended upon the coast. The sky turned black, and the sea rose up in waves so colossal they seemed to scrape the clouds. The wind shrieked like a vengeful spirit, and the entire lighthouse tower, though built of massive, interlocking stones, would tremble with each concussive impact of the waves. A young fisherman, caught in the storm, had managed to anchor his small boat in the relative shelter of the island's tiny cove. He scrambled up the rocks and pounded on the great oak door of the lighthouse. The old keeper let him in, and the young man collapsed, terrified and exhausted, onto the floor of the tower's base. "It's the end of the world," the young man cried over the roar of the wind. "The sea will take us. The tower will fall." "How can you be so calm?" The old lighthouse keeper looked down at the frightened man. His face was weathered, but his eyes were clear and steady. He did not seem to be focused on the storm at all. "My work is not the sea," he said, his voice even and calm. "My work is the light." He then turned and began his slow, methodical climb up the winding stone staircase. The young fisherman, having nowhere else to go, followed him as they climbed. The fury of the storm seemed to intensify. The sound was deafening. The stone walls wept with moisture. But the old man paid it no mind. He climbed with a steady, unhurried pace. They reached the top of the tower, the great lantern room, a space of glass and polished brass. Here the storm was a terrifying spectacle, visible in all its fury. But the keeper went about his duties. He checked the great wick of the lamp. He polished a smudge from the giant, curved lens with a soft cloth. He checked the level of the oil, his movements precise, economical, and filled with a quiet reverence. His entire world, his entire focus, was on the simple, sacred task of ensuring that the light burned brightly, that it was pure and steady, a clear and unwavering beacon for any other souls lost in the storm. He did not try to stop the wind. He did not curse the waves. He simply, and with his whole being, tended to the light. The young fisherman watched him, mesmerized. The keeper's calm was not a denial of the storm. It was a testament to his refuge. His peace was not dependent on the weather. His stability was rooted in his purpose. And watching him, the young man's own terror began to subside. He found himself breathing more slowly, his heart rate calming. The storm still raged, but he was no longer lost in it. He was in the presence of the light. This is a powerful parable for our own inner work. We are all lighthouse keepers. The storm is the chaos of the external world, and the equally turbulent weather of our own minds, our fears, our anxieties, our attachments. The lantern's flame is the metaphor for our core awareness, our innate Buddha nature. It is the part of us that is pure consciousness, the silent, knowing presence that exists beneath the noise of our thoughts and emotions. It is the part of you that is aware that you are thinking. It is the part of you that is aware that you are feeling sad or happy. The thoughts and feelings are the weather. The awareness is the unwavering light that illuminates them. To take refuge, then, is to learn to be the lighthouse keeper. It is to shift our primary focus from trying to control the storm to diligently tending the light. Our spiritual practice, our meditation, our mindfulness, our acts of compassion is the methodical, sacred task of polishing the lens and trimming the wick. Each time we sit down to meditate, we are saying, "My work is not the storm, my work is the light." Each time we catch ourselves lost in a storm of anxious thoughts and gently return our focus to the breath, we are tending the flame. We are strengthening our connection to that inner refuge of calm, clear awareness. This refuge is always available. It is not something you have to create. It is your fundamental nature. The light is always on, but it can become obscured. The lens of our perception can become smeared with the grime of old beliefs, judgments, and conditioning, making the light appear dim and distorted. Our practice is the act of cleaning the lens, so that the light of our own awareness can shine through, clearly and brightly. Let us take a few moments to find our way into that lighthouse now. I invite you to settle your body and close your eyes. If that feels comfortable, imagine yourself inside a tall, sturdy stone lighthouse. Outside, a great storm is raging. You can hear the howling of the wind. You can feel the deep, resonant boom of the waves crashing against the tower. Allow yourself to hear and feel this external chaos, but you are safe inside. Feel the solid stone floor beneath you. Feel the strength of the thick, curved walls around you. This tower is your body, your presence in this moment. It is strong enough to hold the storm down. Now, bring your attention from the storm outside to the center of your own being. Find a place in your body, perhaps in the center of your chest, your heart space, or in your solar plexus, and imagine a small, steady flame burning there. This is your lantern. This is your light. For the next few moments, your only task is to gently tend to this flame. Let your attention rest upon it. See its qualities. It is warm, it is constant, it is peaceful. It does not flicker wildly in the wind, because it is protected deep inside the tower. It burns with a quiet, confident, golden light. The sounds of the storm will continue. A wave of emotion, fear, sadness might crash against the tower. A gust of anxious thoughts might whistle around the glass. That is fine. Let the storm be the storm. Your work is the light. Each time you notice your attention has been pulled away by the noise of the storm, gently, without any judgment, guide it back to the flame dot. Rest your awareness on its warmth. Feel that warmth spreading through your chest, down into your belly, up into your shoulders. This is the warmth of your own awareness, your own kindness. It is your refuge. Breathe in and imagine your breath is like pure, clean oil feeding the flame, making it burn a little brighter. Breathe out and imagine you are polishing the great lens around the flame, so its light can shine more clearly. You are the keeper of this light. It is your most important task. The world will always have its storms. The mind will always have its weather. But this inner refuge, this steady flame of awareness, is always here. Peace is not the absence of the storm. Peace is the presence of the light. When we learn to tend to this light, it illuminates the space around it. It shows us the landscape of our own mind, the inner garden we are responsible for cultivating. To keep this light shining brightly, to ensure the lens stays clean, we must become skillful caretakers of this inner world, learning what to plant, what to water, and what to gently weed. We must become the gardener of our own mind. In the quiet, protected space of the lighthouse, we learn to tend to our inner flame. We discover that our primary work is not to fight the storm, but to cultivate the light of our own steady, calm awareness. When we do this, when we turn our attention inward, that light illuminates the world within us. And what it reveals is a landscape, a terrain that is uniquely our own. It reveals our mind, not as some abstract thinking machine, but as a garden. For some of us, looking at this inner garden for the first time can be a disconcerting experience. We see a place that is overgrown, a chaotic tangle of weeds. The weeds of anxious thoughts, the thorny bushes of old resentments, the creeping vines of habitual negativity. Our first instinct, faced with this wilderness, is often one of panic and despair. We believe we must clear this entire plot immediately. We grab at the weeds, trying to rip them out by the roots. We declare war on our own thoughts. We spend our days in a frantic and exhausting struggle, pulling at the nettles of self-criticism and hacking at the brambles of fear. But this approach rarely works. For every weed we pull, two more seem to spring up in its place. The more we focus on the negativity, the more we disturb the soil of our minds, making it even more fertile for unwanted growth. We become like a frantic gardener who spends all his energy fighting what he does not want, and in the end, is left with nothing but disturbed earth and a profound sense of exhaustion. There is a wiser way. It is a way of gentle cultivation, of patient and compassionate effort. It is the way of the skillful gardener who knows that the secret to a beautiful garden is not just in the weeding, but in the planting. A Zen master, wishing to teach his students about the nature of the mind, gave two of his most promising disciples a small, identical plot of land behind the monastery. The plots were neglected, choked with weeds and stones. Your task, the master said, is to transform this ground into a place of peace and beauty. How you do it is up to you. The first disciple, a young man named Kenji, was full of energy and determination. He saw the weeds as his enemy. He immediately set to work, attacking the plot with a fierce intensity. From dawn until dusk, he pulled and dug, his robes stained with sweat, his fingernails broken and caked with dirt. He was relentless. He would clear a small patch, only to turn around and find new weeds sprouting in the space he had just cleared. He became consumed by his hatred for the weeds. His meditation became about visualizing the weeds dying. His mind was filled with a constant, low-grade frustration. He was working incredibly hard, but his plot of land remained a battlefield of bare, disturbed earth. The second disciple, a young woman named Hannah, took a different approach. She spent the first day sitting quietly by her plot, observing it. She noted where the sun fell. She saw what kinds of weeds grew most vigorously. She felt the texture of the soil. She did not see the weeds as an enemy, but simply as the current condition of the garden. The next day, she began her work. But she did not start by pulling all the weeds. Instead, she started by gently clearing a small section of the land. She removed the largest stones and turned the soil. Then, she went to the monastery's store of seeds. She carefully selected seeds for plants that she knew were hardy and beautiful. She chose seeds for vibrant marigolds that would repel pests, for fragrant lavender that would bring calm, for deep-rooted spinach that would provide nourishment. She planted these seeds in the small patch she had cleared. And then her primary work began. Every day, she would water her chosen seeds. She would protect the tender sprouts. She would turn her loving attention to what she wanted to grow. Of course, she would also pull the weeds that sprang up immediately around her seedlings, preventing them from being choked. But this weeding was targeted, purposeful, and secondary to her main task of cultivation. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, her garden began to transform. The spinach grew, its broad, green leaves creating a canopy of shade that made it difficult for new weeds to find sunlight. The lavender sprouted, its fragrance filling the air. The marigolds bloomed, their bright orange and yellow faces a joyful celebration of life. As the weeks went on, her chosen plants grew stronger and stronger, their roots taking hold, their leaves spreading out. They began to naturally crowd out the weeds. The weeds were still there at the edges of the plot, but they had less space, less sunlight, less nourishment. The garden's flourishing had become its own defense. By the end of the season, Hannah's plot was a beautiful, thriving tapestry of color and life, a place of peace and nourishment. Kenji's was still mostly bare, exhausted earth. The master called the two disciples to him. He looked at the two plots and then at his students. The mind, he said, is just like this garden. You cannot find peace by only fighting what you do not want. Peace arises when you skillfully and lovingly cultivate what you do. This story is a perfect illustration of the principle of right effort, a cornerstone of the Buddhist path. Right effort is not about gritting your teeth and trying harder. It is about being skillful. And skill, in this context, means understanding that our mental energy is a precious resource. Where we choose to place it determines the kind of garden our mind will become. The garden of the mind is the most intimate and important landscape we will ever tend. Thoughts are the seeds. Some seeds are blown in by the wind of circumstance. We can't always control that, but we can, absolutely, choose which seeds we are going to water. The first disciple, Kenji, was watering the weeds with his attention. By focusing all his energy on them, by hating them, by fighting them, he was inadvertently giving them the nourishment of his focus. Hannah, on the other hand, watered the flowers and vegetables. She gave the power of her attention to the wholesome, the beautiful, and the nourishing. This is the essence of a wholesome mental practice. It is not just about ceasing to do harm. It is about actively cultivating the good. We spend so much time trying to stop thinking anxious thoughts, trying to suppress angry thoughts, trying to argue with critical thoughts. This is weeding. And while a little of it is necessary, if it is our only strategy, we will end up exhausted like Kenji. The path of wisdom is to actively cultivate thoughts of kindness, gratitude, compassion, and calm. At first, these may feel like tiny, fragile seedlings in a jungle of weeds, but if we water them every day, they will grow. A daily practice of gratitude, where you intentionally bring to mind 3 things you are thankful for, is watering a flower. A practice of loving kindness, where you intentionally send good wishes to yourself and others, is watering a flower. The practice of mindfulness itself, of returning your attention again and again to the calm anchor of the breath, is preparing the soil and strengthening the roots of peace. As the Dhammapada, one of the oldest Buddhist texts, says, whatever a hater may do to a hater, or an enemy to an enemy, A wrongly directed mind will do oneself greater harm. Our greatest enemy is not our intrusive thoughts. It is the way we mishandle them. Our greatest ally is our ability to intentionally cultivate a mind of beauty and peace. Let us take a moment now to do some gentle gardening. Settle your body into a position of ease. Let the earth support you. Bring your awareness inward to the landscape of your mind. Without judgment, I invite you to just look at your garden as it is in this moment. You may see some weeds. Perhaps there is a weed of worry about the future. Perhaps there is a weed of regret about the past. Just notice them. You don't need to do anything about them. Simply see them with the compassionate, observing eyes of the wise gardener. Now, instead of reaching for the weed, I want you to reach for a seed packet. In this packet are seeds for the most beautiful flowers imaginable. There are seeds of gratitude, seeds of kindness, seeds of contentment, seeds of patience. Choose one seed. Let's choose the seed of gratitude. Hold this tiny potential-filled seed in your mind. Now, bring to mind one simple thing in your life for which you are genuinely grateful. It does not have to be big. It could be the comfort of the bed you are in. It could be the sound of rain on the roof. It could be the memory of a good cup of coffee. It could be the simple fact of your own breath moving in and out. Find one small, genuine thing. This is your seed. Now we are going to plant it. In your mind, create a small patch of clear earth and gently place this seed of gratitude into the soil. Now we must water it. Let's water it with our attention. For the next few breaths, let your full awareness rest on this one point of gratitude. Feel it in your body. If you are grateful for the comfort of your bed, really feel the softness of the pillows, the weight of the blanket. Let the feeling of gratitude, a gentle warmth, fill you. With each breath, you are watering this seed. You are giving it your energy, your life force. Imagine you can see it sprouting. A tiny green shoot is pushing up through the soil of your mind. A leaf unfurls, catching the inner light of your awareness. It is growing because you have chosen to tend to it. You can do this with any quality you wish to cultivate. If you are struggling with self-criticism, plant a seed of self-kindness. Think of one thing you have done well recently, no matter how small, and water that memory with your attention. This is the gentle, transformative work of the gardener of the mind. It is a practice of patience and profound hope. We learn that we have the power in any given moment to choose where we place our attention. We can water the weeds or we can water the flowers. By consistently choosing the flowers, we create a mind that becomes, in time, a sanctuary of peace, a place where the weeds of negativity find less and less sunlight to grow. This peaceful garden creates a sense of profound inner quiet, not a forced quiet, but a natural stillness. So often, we think we can only find this quiet by bulldozing the entire garden, by getting rid of every sound, every thought. But what if the deepest silence isn't an absence of sound at all? What if it is the very space in which all sounds arise? The gentle work of tending our inner garden, of cultivating flowers instead of fighting weeds, brings with it a quality of quietness. As the frantic energy of struggle subsides, a natural stillness begins to emerge. And this stillness is what so many of us are desperately seeking. We come to practices like meditation with the hope of finally finding a moment of peace, a respite from the constant chattering noise of our own minds. We believe that peace is the opposite of noise. We imagine it as a state of perfect, unbroken silence, a place where the endless stream of thoughts finally ceases to flow. And so we begin our practice. We sit down, we close our eyes, and we try to stop the noise, and we are immediately met with a cacophony, a plan for tomorrow, a line from a song, a worry about a conversation, an itch on our nose. The noise seems to get louder the moment we ask it to be quiet. This experience can be incredibly discouraging. It can feel like a failure. We think, I can't do this. My mind is too busy. I am incapable of being silent. We believe the noise is the problem, and that our inability to eliminate it is our fault. We are like someone standing in a busy train station, trying to find peace by shouting at all the trains to stop running. But the wisdom of the path offers a radical and liberating alternative. It teaches us that true silence is not the absence of sound. True silence is the background of awareness against which all sounds are heard. We don't have to stop the trains. We just have to stop standing on the tracks. We can find a bench on the platform and notice the space that allows the trains to come and go. We can learn to listen not to the noise, but to the silence that holds the noise. In a mountain monastery, the hours of the day were marked by the sound of a large bronze bell. Its deep, resonant tone would ring out to call the monks to morning, meditation, to meals, to work, and to evening chanting. For a young novice who had recently arrived, this bell was a source of constant torment. He had come to the monastery seeking silence, but his peace was shattered multiple times a day by the bell's commanding voice. Every time he would begin to settle into his meditation, feeling a glimmer of stillness, the bell would ring out, and he would jolt, his mind instantly agitated. There it is again, he would think, a wave of irritation washing over him. The sound of the bell became his enemy. He began to anticipate it, to dread it. His entire practice became a tense waiting for the next interruption. The bell, meant to be a sacred call to presence, had become for him the very symbol of his failure to find peace. One day, filled with frustration, he went to the monastery's abbot, a very old master with a quiet, patient presence. "Master," the novice complained, "I cannot find silence here. I try to meditate, but the constant ringing of the bell destroys any peace I can find. How can anyone find enlightenment in all this noise?" The master looked at the young man, a faint, knowing smile playing on his lips. "The problem is not the bell," he said. "The problem is that you are listening incorrectly. Tonight, during the evening meditation, I want you to try something different. Do not listen to the bell. Instead, listen for the silence." The novice was confused by this instruction, but he was determined to try. That evening, he took his place in the meditation hall. As always, he was tense, waiting for the inevitable sound. The time came, and the monk assigned to the bell began to strike it with the large wooden mallet. The first note rang out, a deep, powerful bong that vibrated through the wooden floors and up into the novice's body. But this time, he followed the master's instruction. He didn't focus on the sound itself. Instead, he paid close attention to its life cycle. He heard the sharp attack of the note, the initial impact. Then he heard the long, beautiful sustain, the shimmering waves of sound that filled the hall. He followed the sound as it began to decay, its energy slowly fading, becoming quieter and quieter until it was gone. And in the moment the sound vanished, the novice fell into what came next. It was a silence so profound, so deep and so vast, it felt more real than the sound that had preceded it. It was not an empty void. It was a rich, spacious, and alive presence. He realized, in a flash of insight, that this silence had not begun. When the bell stopped, it had been there all along. The sound of the bell had simply been a brief event. Within the silence, he waited for the next strike of the bell. Bong, he followed the note from its birth to its death, and fell once again into the immense ocean of silence that followed. He began to hear the silence not just after the bell, but before it and even underneath it. The bell was no longer an interruption to the silence. The silence was the canvas, and the bell was just a single, temporary brushstroke of color. His enemy had become his greatest teacher. He had stopped trying to get rid of the noise and had discovered the infinite, pre-existing peace that contained it. This experience points toward one of the most profound teachings of Buddhism, the concept of shunyata, or emptiness. For the Western ear, emptiness can sound nihilistic or frightening, suggesting a cold, meaningless void. But this is a misunderstanding. Shunyata does not mean nothingness. It means empty of a separate, solid, independent existence. It points to the truth that everything is radically interconnected, arising and passing away in a vast, open field of potentiality. This is the silence that holds the sound. The silence is not the opposite of the sound. The silence is the necessary condition for the sound to be experienced at all. In the same way, our foundational consciousness, our pure, bare awareness, is the emptiness or silence in which all the phenomena of our lives arise. Our thoughts, our feelings, our sensations, they are like the bells. They arise, they seem very loud and solid for a moment, and then they dissolve back into the silence of awareness from which they came. Our suffering comes from the fact that we focus only on the bells. We chase the pleasant-sounding bells, we run from the dissonant ones, and we ignore the faint ones. Our attention is completely captivated by the temporary phenomena, and we forget the vast, silent, and permanent awareness that is our true nature. Peace is not found by stopping all the bells from ringing. That is an impossible task. Peace is found by shifting our identity from the bell to the silence that allows the bell to be heard. Let us try to listen for this silence now, wherever you are. Allow yourself to settle. You don't need a special environment. Any place is perfect. For this practice, let your body be still. First, simply open your awareness to the world of sound around you. Without labeling or judging, just listen. You might hear the hum of an appliance, the distant sound of traffic, the rustle of leaves, or the sound of your own breathing. Just let these sounds come and go. Be a passive receiver, a sensitive microphone for the world. Now, we are going to make a subtle shift in our attention. Instead of focusing on the sounds themselves, I invite you to listen for the space between the sounds. Listen for the quiet background out of which a sound emerges and into which it dissolves. Notice the vast, silent space of the room you are in. That space is not bothered by the sound of a passing car. The sound happens within the quiet space. The quiet space itself remains undisturbed. Try to feel that quality of undisturbed, spacious silence. Let's bring this practice inward now. Turn your attention to the flow of your own thoughts. Your thoughts are the inner bells. A thought arises. It might be a worry, a plan, a memory. See if you can watch it without getting caught in its story. Watch it arise, hear its sound, and then watch it dissolve, and then listen. In the tiny gap before the next thought arises, can you sense the silence? Can you feel the quiet, aware background of your own mind? It may only be there for a fraction of a second, but it is there. This is not about forcing the thoughts to stop. That will only create more noise. It is simply about becoming more interested in the silence than in the noise. When a thought comes, let it come, let it ring, and then listen for the space it leaves behind. This silence is your true refuge. It is the peace that surpasses all understanding, because it is not a peace that depends on conditions being a certain way. It is the peace of your own unbound awareness. It is always here. We don't have to create it. We just have to notice it. When we learn to rest in this inner silence, we realize how much we have been needlessly carrying. We see how we have been weighing ourselves down with the noise of our own minds. This recognition of the sheer weight of our own thinking leads us to a very practical question. Just how heavy is a worry? And what would it feel like to finally put it down? Resting in the vast, silent space of our own awareness, we begin to perceive the noise of our lives differently. The frantic thoughts, the relentless worries, the endless commentary, they no longer seem like the entirety of who we are. We see them for what they are. Temporary events, like bells ringing in a vast silence. And from this place of deeper perspective, we can begin to feel their quality, not just their content. We can feel their texture, their temperature, and most of all, their weight. So much of the exhaustion we experience in our daily lives comes not from our physical labors, but from the immense invisible load we carry in our minds. It is the weight of chronic stress, of low-grade anxiety, of a problem we keep turning over and over, hoping that if we just think about it hard enough, we can solve it. We walk through our days with this burden on our shoulders. It creates a tension in our neck, a tightness in our gut, a weariness behind our eyes. We grow so accustomed to the weight that we forget we are even carrying it. It just becomes the normal weather of our lives, a constant state of being burdened. We believe that the weight is inherent to the problem. We think, of course, I'm stressed. I have a difficult job. Or, of course, I'm worried. I have this health issue to deal with. We assume the problem and the stress are one and the same. But the wisdom of the path reveals a crucial space between the two. The problem is the problem. The stress is our relationship to the problem. And it is in our relationship to it that the true weight is created. There is a modern parable that illustrates this with beautiful and simple clarity. A psychologist was giving a lecture on stress management to a room full of people. She walked out onto the stage, and instead of beginning with a slideshow or a speech, she simply picked up a glass of water from the table beside her and held it up for all to see. A knowing ripple went through the audience. They expected the classic "is the glass half empty or half full" metaphor. But she surprised them. She simply held the glass up and asked, with a genuine curiosity in her voice, "How heavy do you think this glass of water is?" Audience members started calling out their guesses. 8 ounces, one person shouted. 12 ounces, said another. Maybe a pound, offered a third. The psychologist smiled. Your guesses about its absolute weight don't really matter, she replied. The true weight depends entirely on how long I hold it. If I hold it for a minute, she continued, it's quite light. It's no problem at all. If I hold it for an hour, my arm will start to ache. The glass hasn't changed, but my experience of its weight has. If I were to hold it for an entire day, my arm would feel cramped, numb, and paralyzed. I might even drop the glass. In each case, the physical weight of the glass of water is exactly the same, but the longer I hold it, the heavier and heavier it feels to me. She paused, letting her words sink in as she looked around the room. Your stresses and worries in life, she said, are very much like this glass of water. Think about them for a few minutes and they feel manageable. Think about them for a few hours and they begin to ache. Think about them all day long and you will feel paralyzed, incapable of doing anything else. The worry itself doesn't change, but your prolonged holding of it is what creates the crushing weight. She then offered the core of her lesson. The secret to managing stress, she said as she gently placed the glass back on the table, is to remember to put the glass down. This simple story cuts to the very heart of how we create our own suffering. The core teaching here is a powerful interplay between two fundamental Buddhist principles, anicca, or impermanence, and updana, or clinging. A worry is just a thought, and a thought, by its very nature, is impermanent. It is a fleeting, mental event that arises, exists for a moment, and then naturally passes away. A thought has no more inherent weight than a cloud in the sky or a bubble in a stream. This is its nature. It is anicca. It is as light as the glass of water when you first pick it up. The problem, the source of all the weight, is updana. It is our tendency to cling, to grasp, to hold on. A worrisome thought arises, and instead of allowing it to pass like a cloud, we grab onto it. We hold it. We identify with it. We feed it with more thoughts. We water its roots with our fear. We get into a debate with it. This act of holding on, of refusing to let the impermanent thought simply pass, is what gives it its power and its weight. We are the ones who refuse to put the glass down, and then we complain about how heavy our arm is. Our minds have a well-documented negativity bias. For sound evolutionary reasons, our brains are like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. A single criticism can stick with us all day, while a dozen compliments slide right off. We are hardwired to scan for threats, and so we naturally hold on to worrisome thoughts more tightly. Mindfulness practice is the act of becoming aware of this habit. It is noticing, I am holding the glass of water right now. The moment of noticing is the moment of possibility, the moment where we can choose to do something different. The glass of water is the perfect metaphor for that worry you've been carrying all day. It is not the big existential dreads, but the specific, recurring anxieties. The worry about a bill that's due, the replaying of an awkward conversation, the concern about a loved one's health. Each one is a glass of water that we are holding. And the invitation of this teaching is not to pretend the glass doesn't exist, but to consciously and regularly put it down. Let us try the simple, profound practice of putting down the glass. Allow your body to find a state of rest. Let gravity hold you. I invite you to bring to mind a specific worry that has been on your mind lately. Choose one particular glass of water that you have been holding. It could be a small worry or a medium-sized one. Just for this practice, let's avoid the heaviest ones. Find a worry that feels familiar. As you bring this worry to mind, I want you to feel its weight in your body. Where do you carry it? Is it a tension in your shoulders, a knot in your stomach, a tightness in your chest? Don't judge it, just feel it. Acknowledge its perceived weight. This is what it feels like to be holding this glass. Now we are going to perform a simple, powerful act of visualization. In your mind's eye, see yourself holding this glass of water. See the tension in your hand, the strain in your arm. And now, with your next slow, deep exhalation, I want you to visualize yourself putting the glass down. Imagine a solid, sturdy table right beside you. As you breathe out, feel the muscles in your hand beginning to loosen their grip. Feel your arm gently moving to the side. Feel the solid, satisfying contact as the base of the glass touches the surface of the table. Let go. Release your hand. Take your hand away. The glass is on the table now. It is no longer your burden to hold. It still exists. The worry has not been magically solved, but you are not carrying it. Take a full, deep breath and feel the immediate relief. Feel the lightness in your hand. Feel the release of tension in your arm, your shoulder, your neck. Feel the space that has been created in your mind now that you are not consumed by the effort of holding. This feeling is real. This relief is always available to you. The worry may still be in your field of vision. You can see the glass on the table, but there is a separation now. It is there and you are here. You are free. You can do this at any time of day. When you find yourself lost in a cycle of worry, you can pause and mentally say to yourself, I am holding the glass. And then, with a conscious out-breath, you can mentally put the glass down. This small act, repeated over time, can fundamentally change your relationship with stress. You learn that you can pick the glass up when you need to deal with the problem, and you can put it down when you need to rest. Learning to put down our individual worries allows us to cultivate a greater sense of balance and stability in our lives. This quality of inner balance, of not being knocked over by every passing problem or emotion, is a supreme skill. It allows us to face not just our small worries, but the great highs and lows of life with a calm and steady heart. It is the quality of a great mountain, which remains unmoved by the passing weather. The practice of remembering to put down the glass of water is a profound act of kindness to ourselves. It frees us from the self-imposed burden of our individual worries. But life presents us with more than just manageable, temporary anxieties. It brings great seasons of change, powerful winds that threaten to knock us off our feet entirely. It brings the joy of gain and the sorrow of loss, the sweetness of pleasure and the bitterness of pain, the warmth of praise and the sting of blame, the brightness of fame and the shadow of disrepute. These are known in the Buddhist tradition as the 8 worldly winds, and they blow upon every human life without exception. Our habitual tendency is to be completely at the mercy of these winds. When the wind of praise blows, we puff up with pride, soaring on its current. When the wind of blame inevitably follows, we collapse, shattered by its force. When we experience gain, we feel secure and happy, but this only makes the inevitable experience of loss more terrifying. We live in a state of constant emotional volatility, our inner peace entirely dependent on which way the wind is blowing. Today, we become like a weather vane, spinning frantically in every direction, knowing no stability, no center, no true home to find that home. We must cultivate a quality of being that is not affected by the weather. We must learn to embody a stability so deep that the winds of the world can blow around us, through us, and over us, without uprooting us. We must learn to become the mountain. Imagine a great mountain, not just any mountain, but the most majestic peak in your mind's eye. Its base is rooted deep in the bedrock of the earth, solid and immovable. Its peak reaches high into the sky, touching the clouds down. Now watch this mountain through the great turning of the year. See it in the full glory of summer. It is covered in a lush blanket of green. Wildflowers bloom on its slopes. Animals raise their young in the shelter of its forests. The sun bathes it in golden, benevolent light from dawn until dusk. People point to it and speak of its beauty. The mountain simply sits. It is not arrogant in its beauty. It does not cling to the warmth of the sun. It simply is. The season turns, autumn arrives, and the winds begin to blow, carrying a new chill. The mountain's green cloak is transformed into a fiery tapestry of crimson, orange, and gold. It is a different kind of beauty, a breathtaking, poignant farewell to the warmth. The mountain is awash in splendor, but it does not grasp at this fleeting glory. It allows its leaves to be stripped away by the wind, letting them fall to nourish the soil below. The mountain simply sits. Then comes winter. The winds turn harsh and bitter. The sky is often a sheet of iron grey. Snow falls, thick and heavy, blanketing the mountain in a shroud of white silence. It is stark, austere, and for some, desolate. The warmth is gone. The color is gone. The mountain endures the freezing cold, the crushing weight of the snow, the long, dark nights. It does not complain. It does not resist. It does not wish it were summer again. It simply wears its coat of snow with a profound dignity. It simply sits, and then, inevitably, spring returns. The ice begins to melt, forming torrents of water that rush down its sides, carving new paths. The first brave shoots of green push through the cold earth. The light returns, soft and hopeful. Life awakens from its long slumber. The mountain receives the thaw, the new life, the gentle rains, without a sense of triumphant victory. It was not defeated by winter, so it cannot be victorious in spring. The mountain simply sits. The mountain experiences every season, every storm, every moment of breathtaking beauty, and every period of stark desolation. It is not separate from the weather, but it is never defined by the weather. It does not become the blizzard. It does not become the sunshine. It is the vast, unwavering presence that allows all weather to happen. This is the quality of upekkha, or equanimity. Equanimity is one oft for sublime states of heart, along with loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy. And it is perhaps the most misunderstood. Equanimity is not indifference. It is not a cold detachment or a refusal to feel. In fact, it is the opposite. It is a heart so open, so spacious, and so balanced that it is able to hold the full spectrum of life's experiences without being thrown off center. It is the courage to feel pleasure without clinging, and to feel pain without aversion. Is the wisdom to know that all of it is weather, passing through the vast sky of your awareness. The mountain is the perfect metaphor for this unshakable presence we can cultivate within ourselves. To practice equanimity is to learn to sit like a mountain. It is to find that place inside you that is still, solid, and timeless. Let us try to find that mountain within us now. Whether you are sitting or lying down, allow your body to feel its own weight, its own solidness. Feel your connection to the earth beneath you. You are rooted. You are stable. Now, bring the image of that great mountain into your mind. See its majestic shape. See its rooted base and its high peak. And now, begin to feel as if you are that mountain. Your legs and pelvis are the solid base, rooted deep in the ground. Your spine is the central axis, rising straight and with dignity. Your head is the noble peak. Your arms and shoulders are its sloping sides. Embody the stillness and the solidity of the mountain. Feel its immense, unshakable stability. Now, as you sit here, being the mountain, notice the weather of your own mind and body. Perhaps a thought of worry passes through your mind. See it as a cloud drifting across the face of the mountain. You are not the cloud. You are the mountain. The cloud appears. It lingers for a moment, and it drifts away. The mountain remains. Perhaps a pleasant feeling arises, a memory of a happy moment. See it as a shaft of warm sunlight landing on your slopes. Bathe in its warmth. Enjoy it fully. And know that it too will pass as the sun moves across the sky. You do not need to chase it. You are the mountain. A feeling of physical pain or discomfort might appear. An ache in your back, a tension in your neck. See it as a sharp, cold wind blowing across a rocky outcrop. Feel its sensation. Do not resist it. Do not fight it. You are vast enough to hold this weather till the wind blows and then it subsides. The mountain remains. Practice this for a few moments. Simply sitting, being the mountain, allowing the ever-changing weather of your thoughts, your feelings, and your sensations to come and go. Your only task is to remain rooted, still, present. You are the mountain. You are the refuge. You are the peace that is not disturbed by the passing storm. Cultivating this mountain-like stability is a profound gift. It gives us a center in a world of chaos. But as with any powerful tool, there is a subtle danger. We can become so focused on the practice, on the technique, on the how-to of becoming the mountain, that we forget what the practice is for. We can become obsessed with the tool itself, and in doing so, miss the very point of the journey. We begin to stare at the finger, and we completely forget about the moon. As we learn to sit like a mountain, cultivating a deep inner stability, we begin to feel a sense of mastery over our own minds. We have found a powerful technique, a refuge from the storms of life. And this is a wonderful and necessary stage of the path. But here, a new and very subtle trap can emerge. It is the trap of falling in love with the practice itself. It is the danger of becoming a spiritual collector, someone who gathers techniques, memorizes concepts, and polishes their identity as a meditator or a spiritual person, yet misses the very liberation the practices are designed to reveal. There is a particular kind of frustration that arises from this place. It is the feeling of doing everything by the book, yet still feeling a sense of profound disconnection. You may meditate every single day. You may read all the right books. You may be able to speak eloquently about equanimity or compassion, but in the quiet moments, a feeling of hollowness persists. You have all the right answers, but your heart is still not at peace. This is the state of someone who has become an expert on the menu, but has never actually tasted the food. They have mistaken the description of the meal for the nourishment itself. This very human tendency is captured in one of the most essential and enduring metaphors in all of Zen. It is a teaching so simple, yet so profound, that it can reorient our entire approach to spiritual life. A master was walking with his student on a clear, bright night. The full moon was hanging in the inky sky like a perfect silver lantern, its gentle light illuminating the path before them. The master stopped and raised his hand, pointing with his index finger toward the brilliant orb in the sky. "Look," the master said. "Look at the moon." The student, being very diligent and eager to please, fixed his gaze intently upon the master's finger. He studied its shape, the lines on the knuckle, the angle at which it was held. He thought to himself, this is the teaching. The finger is the key. I must understand everything about this finger. The master waited for a long moment and then sighed softly. "What are you looking at?" he asked. "I am looking at your finger," "Master," the student replied proudly, "it is a most excellent finger." The master shook his head, a look of gentle exasperation on his face. "The finger," he said, "is not the moon. I am using my finger to show you the moon. If you only look at the finger, you will never see the beauty of the moon." This story is a timeless warning against a fundamental error, mistaking the map for the territory. The words, the teachings, the rituals, the techniques, this very script, they are all just fingers pointing at the moon. They are not the moon itself. They are tools, pointers, invitations. Their sole purpose is to direct our attention towards something that is beyond words, beyond concepts. The moon is the direct, unmediated experience of reality. It is the felt sense of peace in your own heart. It is the silent, spacious awareness in which your thoughts arise. It is the direct seeing into the interconnected, impermanent nature of life. We get so caught up in collecting and polishing our fingers. We might become a Buddhist finger collector, a Christian finger collector, a mindfulness finger collector. We argue with people who are looking at different fingers, insisting that our finger is the only one that truly points the way. We decorate our finger with beautiful philosophical concepts and feel very proud of it. But all the while, we are staring at the finger, and the moon, in all its silent, luminous glory, remains unseen, unexperienced, right above our heads. This is the danger of what is sometimes called spiritual materialism. It is the tendency of the ego to turn the path of liberation into another project of accumulation. Instead of accumulating wealth or status, we accumulate spiritual knowledge, special experiences, or a righteous identity. We use the teachings not to dismantle the ego, but to build a more sophisticated, spiritual version of it. The result is always a subtle sense of fraudulence, a feeling that we are playing a part rather than living an authentic truth. The teaching of the finger and the moon is an invitation to check in with ourselves honestly. What am I really doing here? Am I practicing meditation to become a good meditator, or am I practicing to touch the peace that meditation points to? Am I reading these words to gather more interesting concepts, or am I allowing them to point me back toward the quiet, living truth within my own body and mind? The moon is not somewhere far away. It is not a reward you get after years of perfecting your finger gazing. The moon is here, right now. It is the simple awareness that is reading these words. It is the feeling of your breath moving in your chest. It is the stillness that exists underneath the surface chatter of your mind. You don't need a better finger to see it. You just need to be willing to lift your gaze from the pointer and look at what is being pointed to. Let us use this moment to practice lifting our gaze. Allow yourself to settle. Let the business of the day, the concepts, the ideas, begin to recede. Just for a moment, all of the practices we have discussed so far, seeing the beauty in the cracked pot, sitting by the river, emptying the cup, sitting like a mountain, these are all fingers. They are wonderful, skillful fingers, but they are not the moon. The moon is the silent awareness that learned those lessons. The moon is the peace that arises when you put down the glass of water. I invite you to bring to mind one finger in your life that you might be clinging to. It could be a spiritual practice, as we've discussed, but it could be something else. Perhaps it is your identity as a good parent, or a successful professional, or a healthy person. These identities are fingers. They are useful pointers, but they are not the totality of who you are. Perhaps it is a political belief, or a scientific theory, a system of thought that you hold onto very tightly. These are fingers. Choose one of these fingers and see it clearly in your mind. See how you hold it, how you polish it, how you defend it. There is no judgment here. We all do this. It is a very human thing to do now. Gently ask yourself a question. What is this finger pointing toward? If your finger is the identity of a good parent, what is it pointing to? Perhaps it is pointing to the moon of unconditional love, of connection, of care. Can you let go of the finger of your identity for a moment and just feel the direct experience of love for your child? That love is the moon. If your finger is a strongly held belief system, what is it pointing to? Perhaps it is pointing to a moon of safety, of understanding, of justice. Can you let go of the rigid finger of the belief for a moment and connect with the direct, heartfelt longing for a just and safe world? That longing is the moon. The practice is to shift from the concept to the direct experience. The finger is the thought. The moon is the feeling, the awareness, the presence. Let go of all the fingers now. Let go of the mountain, the river, the cup. Let go of being a good meditator. Let go of trying to get this right. Let all the pointers fall away and just be here in the simple, unadorned reality of this moment. Feel your breath. Hear the sounds. In the room, feel the aliveness in your hands. This is the moon. It has been here all along, waiting for you to look up. When we look at the moon of our own direct experience, we see everything. We see our joy, our peace, and we also see our pain, our cracks, our broken places. And this is where the moonlight is most needed. For it is the light of our own awareness that can transform our deepest wounds into our most profound beauty. It is the light that illuminates the art of the golden repair. When we lift our gaze from the finger and look directly at the moon of our own experience, our vision becomes clear. And that clarity is not always comfortable. The soft moonlight of awareness does not only illuminate the beautiful, peaceful parts of our inner landscape, it also shines with an equal and impartial light upon the broken places. It shines on the old wounds, the jagged edges of past traumas, the painful fractures in our sense of self. Our first instinct, when this light hits a broken part of us, is to recoil, to hide that part away again in the darkness, to feel the familiar, hot sting of shame. We live in a culture that worships the seamless, the new, the whole. We are taught that to be broken is to be discarded. When a thing is shattered, its value is gone. And we apply this same brutal logic to our own hearts. When we are broken by life, by grief, by failure, by betrayal, we believe our value has been diminished. We feel like a worthless, shattered vessel. And we spend enormous amounts of energy trying to hide the cracks, either by pretending they don't exist, or by trying to glue ourselves back together in a way that makes it seem like we were never broken at all. We want to erase our scars, to erase our history, but this is an act of violence against our own story. The path of awakening offers a radically different view. It teaches that our broken places are not a source of shame, but a potential source of our greatest beauty and strength. They are the marks of a life lived, the testament to our survival. And with the right ingredient, these fractures can become the most precious and beautiful part of who we are. That secret ingredient is the gold of loving awareness. This is the heart of the Japanese art and philosophy of Kintsugi. On a small village known for its pottery, there was a tea master who owned a simple, beautiful teacup. It was not ornate or expensive, but he had used it for many years and he cherished it. Its feel in his hands was as familiar as a friend's embrace. One day, a visitor, careless in their movements, knocked the cup from a table. It fell to the stone floor and shattered into several pieces. The visitor was mortified, apologizing profusely, certain that he had destroyed something irreplaceable. The master's students looked upon the broken pieces with sadness. The cup's life was over, but the master did not show any anger or despair. He simply knelt and gathered the broken pieces with a gentle, careful reverence. He did not throw them away. Instead, he took them to his workshop, and there he began the slow, patient process of repair. But he did not use a transparent glue to hide the damage. He used a special lacquer, a traditional tree sap, which he dusted with the finest, most brilliant powdered gold. He did not rush. The process took weeks. He meticulously joined each piece to the next, applying the golden lacquer along every single crack. He was not trying to make the cup look as though it had never been broken. He was doing the opposite. He was honoring the breakage. He was highlighting the lines of fracture, turning them into a beautiful golden web. When he was finished, the cup was whole again, but it was transformed. It was the same cup, yet it was completely new. The jagged lines of its trauma were now its most striking feature. The light caught the veins of gold, and the cup was arguably more beautiful, more precious, and more unique than it had ever been before. It no longer just held tea, it held a story. It held the story of its own shattering and its own loving, beautiful repair. It was not beautiful in spite of being broken. It was beautiful because it had been broken. This is the art of kintsugi, the golden repair, and it is the most perfect metaphor for the healing of the human heart. Each of us is that teacup. Life will, at some point, drop us. We will shatter. This is not a question of if, but when. We will experience loss, heartbreak, and failure. And when we do, we have a choice. We can see ourselves as worthless and broken, and try to hide our pieces in the darkness of shame. Or we can choose the path of kintsugi. We can choose to gather our own broken pieces with a gentle reverence and begin the slow, patient process of repairing ourselves with the gold of self-love, self-compassion, and unconditional awareness. The teaching here is about the transformation of suffering, known as dukkha, or the knowledge of suffering. It is the understanding that our deepest wounds, when met with awareness and compassion, do not have to be dead ends. They can become portals. They can become the source of our greatest wisdom. Your broken heart, once repaired with gold, becomes a heart that is more capable of holding the pain of others. Your experience of failure, once healed with self-compassion, makes you a more humble and understanding human being. Your scars become your credentials of empathy. You are not a damaged person. You are a kintsugi master, a living work of art that bears the luminous story of its own healing. The gold is the key, and the gold is nothing other than the warm, non-judgmental light of your own attention. It is the willingness to say to your own broken places, I see you. I will not abandon you. You are a part of my story, and I will honor you. Let us try this sacred art of the golden repair right now. Come to a place of stillness. Let your body be at ease. I invite you to bring to mind one of your own cracks, one of your broken pieces. It may be the scar of a relationship that ended. It may be a professional failure that brought you shame. It may be a time you did not live up to your own values. Choose one story of brokenness that you feel ready to touch with kindness. Allow yourself to see the broken piece. Feel the memory of the shattering. Feel the familiar ache of the fracture. Do not run from it. Simply be present with it, as the master was present with the shards of his cup. Now, I want you to imagine that you have a small bowl filled with liquid, shimmering gold. This gold is the light of your own loving kindness, your own infinite capacity for compassion. It is warm and luminous. Dip a very fine brush into this liquid gold, and in your mind's eye, begin to trace the lines of your wound with this light. Go slowly. With every stroke of the brush, you are not trying to fix or erase the crack. You are honoring it. You are illuminating it. You are transforming it. As you trace the line of pain, you might whisper to yourself, "This too is part of my beauty," or "This pain has taught me compassion," or simply, "I am healing." Feel the warmth of the gold as it seeps into the fracture. Feel it sealing the break, not with a hidden glue of denial, but with a visible, beautiful seam of acceptance. Follow every line, every jagged edge, until the entire wound is traced in this luminous, precious light. Now, step back and look at yourself. See this part of you not as a flaw to be hidden, but as a mark of profound beauty and strength. The light catches on the golden seams, a testament to your resilience, your courage, your capacity to heal. You are not broken. You are becoming more beautiful, more whole, and more radiantly yourself. This is a practice of profound self-love. It is the choice to see your history not as a liability, but as an integral part of the masterpiece that is you. The strength we gain from this golden repair is not a rigid, brittle strength. It is a strength that is flexible, resilient, and alive. It is the strength not of the mighty oak that stands unyielding until it snaps, but of the humble bamboo that knows how to bend with the wind. The art of kintsugi teaches us that there is a profound strength to be found in acknowledging and healing our broken places. We are not made weaker by our scars. We are made more resilient, our history integrated into a more beautiful and complex whole. But this raises a crucial question about the very nature of strength itself. In our culture, we are often taught to equate strength with rigidity, with an unshakable and unyielding will. We are taught to be like a mighty oak tree, to stand our ground, to never back down, to resist the forces of change with all our might. We apply this model of strength to our lives. We create rigid plans and expectations for how our life should unfold. We cling to a fixed identity, a specific set of beliefs, and a narrow view of what success and happiness look like. We build a strong, solid fortress of the self, and we believe this rigidity will keep us safe. But life is not a static reality. It is a flowing, changing, unpredictable force. It is a great storm, and when the great storms of life come in, unexpected illness, a sudden job loss, the end of a relationship, oak-like rigidity becomes our greatest vulnerability. The unbending tree, when faced with a wind that is stronger than it is, does not yield, it snaps. The path of wisdom suggests a different kind of strength. It is not the strength of resistance, but the strength of resilience. It is a strength that is pliable, adaptable, and rooted in a deep acceptance of the nature of change. It is the strength, not of the oak, but of the bamboo. In a great forest, there grew a magnificent oak tree. It was the oldest and largest tree for miles around. Its trunk was thick and powerful, its bark gnarled and tough. Its branches reached high and wide, creating a vast canopy. It was proud of its strength, its permanence. It looked down upon the slender stalks of bamboo that grew in a grove nearby with a sense of condescending pity. Poor, flimsy things. The oak would think to himself, they shiver and sway with every little breeze. They have no substance, no true strength. The bamboo, for their part, simply swayed, their leaves whispering in the wind. One year, a typhoon of unprecedented fury swept through the region. The wind howled with a strength that the forest had never known. The great oak tree braced itself. It called upon all its power, all its centuries of rigid resistance. It stood firm against the wind, its mighty trunk groaning under the strain. For a time, it held. But the wind was relentless, its power only growing. The oak refused to yield a single inch. And then, with a deafening crack that echoed through the storm, its massive trunk splintered and snapped, and the once mighty tree came crashing to the ground. The bamboo, meanwhile, met the storm in a completely different way. As the ferocious wind blew, they did not resist it. They yielded. They bowed down before its great power, their slender stalks bending so low that their leafy tops touched the very earth. The wind howled over them, unable to get a purchase on their pliable forms. They did not fight the storm, they danced with it. When the storm finally passed and the sun returned, the forest was a scene of devastation. Great trees, like the proud oak, were toppled everywhere. But the grove of bamboo stood tall once more. They had been bent, but they had not been broken. They had yielded, and so they had endured. Their flexibility had been their ultimate strength. This parable is a powerful lesson in the wisdom of the middle way, the path that avoids extremes. The extreme of the oak is a rigid, egoic clinging to our own plans and identity. The extreme of a spineless weed would be to have no core, no roots at all. The bamboo represents the middle way. It is both incredibly flexible and deeply rooted. Its strength comes not from its solidity, but from its hollowness, its emptiness, which allows it to bend. And its resilience comes from its vast, interconnected network of roots, which holds the entire grove together. To be like the bamboo is to learn the art of skillful yielding. This is not the same as giving up. It is an intelligent and graceful adaptation to the reality of the present moment. We may have a plan for our day, but if life presents an unexpected obstacle, can we bend with it rather than snapping in frustration? We may have a strong opinion, but in a conversation, can we be flexible enough to truly listen to another's perspective? We may have a clear image of who we are, but when life asks us to grow and change, can we allow that identity to bend and evolve? This flexibility is not a moral weakness. It is a sign of profound inner security. It is the insecure person who must be rigid, who must cling ferociously to their beliefs and opinions because their sense of self is so fragile. The person who is truly rooted in their own being, like the bamboo is rooted in the earth, can afford to be flexible. They can bend without fear of breaking, because they know they will always return to center. Let us practice feeling this quality of bamboo-like resilience in our own being. Allow your body to settle into stillness. Begin by scanning your body for any areas of rigidity. Where are you being the oak tree right now? Notice any clenching in your jaw, any tightness across your shoulders, any bracing in your belly. These are the physical manifestations of mental and emotional resistance. Just notice them with a kind awareness now. Bring the image of the slender green bamboo to your mind. See it swaying gently in a breeze. Feel its quality of easy, graceful movement. Choose one area of tension in your body. Perhaps it is your shoulders, and as you breathe in, just feel the tension as it is. As you breathe out, I invite you to bring the quality of the bamboo to that area. Imagine the rigid muscles softening, becoming pliable, flexible. Imagine them letting go of their fight, their resistance. With each out-breath, invite a little more softness, a little more yielding. Be like bamboo, you can whisper to yourself. Now, let's extend this to the mind. Bring to mind an area where you have been rigid, perhaps a fixed expectation of how someone should behave, or a rigid judgment you hold against yourself. See this rigidity clearly. Feel its brittle, unyielding quality. And now, breathe the quality of the bamboo into this thought. Can you soften the edges of the expectation? Can you allow for the possibility that there might be another way to see things? Can you bend your perspective just a little? This is not about abandoning your values. It is about releasing the rigid egoic contraction around them. It is about creating space for grace, for surprise, for life as it actually is. Take a few more breaths, and with each one, feel this quality of flexible strength permeating your entire being. Rooted, yet pliable. Strong, yet soft. Grounded, yet able to dance with the wind. This is the resilience that allows us to not only survive the storms of life, but to learn and grow from them. When we can bend like this, we create less inner friction. We stop stirring up the contents of our own minds with our constant resistance. This flexibility creates the conditions for a natural stillness to arise. A stillness that allows the muddy waters of our confusion to finally settle, revealing the clear reflection of what is true. To cultivate the resilience of the bamboo is to learn how to move with the flow of life, rather than constantly fighting against it. This graceful yielding, this release of our rigid resistance, creates a profound shift in our inner world. We stop churning things up. The frantic energy of our inner struggle begins to subside, and in its place, a sense of stillness can arise. But what if the inner world we become still with is a mess? What if our mind feels like a murky, chaotic, muddy pond? This is a very common and frustrating experience. We want to find clarity. We want to understand ourselves, to see the truth of our situation. But our mind is so turbulent with emotion, so clouded with conflicting thoughts, that we can't see a thing. It feels like trying to see your reflection in a pond that has just been stirred up by a storm. All you see are distorted shapes, murky confusion, and your own agitation reflected back at you. Faced with this inner turmoil, our instinct is to do something. We believe we need to figure it out. We try to force clarity. We grab at our thoughts, trying to pin them down and analyze them. We get into arguments with our feelings, trying to wrestle them into submission. We try to skim the mud of our confusion off the top with sheer willpower. But, like a traveler trying to clear a muddy pond with their bare hands, all this frantic activity only makes the water murkier. Our very effort to create clarity becomes the source of our continued confusion. The struggle itself is the mud. The path of wisdom teaches a counterintuitive but deeply effective approach. It teaches that clarity is not something we create through force. Clarity is the natural state of the mind, which reveals itself when we simply allow the agitation to cease. We don't have to clear the water, we just have to stop stirring it. A weary traveler had been walking for days under a hot sun. He was parched and longed for a drink of cool, clean water. He came upon a small village, and at its center he saw a small pond. But his heart sank. The cattle had just been through, and their hooves had churned up the bottom of the pond, turning the water into a thick, brown, unappealing sludge. He was desperate to see his own reflection, to see the face of the man who had endured this long journey. He knelt at the pond's edge and stared into the murky water, but he could see nothing. Frustrated, he plunged his hands into the water, trying to push the mud away, trying to create a small, clear space. but his every movement only stirred up more sediment, making the water even more opaque. He swirled his hands in anger, trying to force the mud to settle. But the water just became a chaotic, muddy vortex. Defeated and exhausted, he finally gave up. He collapsed onto the soft grass at the pond's edge, resigning himself to his thirst. And his confusion, there was nothing more he could do. So he simply sat. He watched the birds in the trees. He felt the breeze on his hot skin. He listened to the sounds of the village. He stopped fighting. He stopped trying. He surrendered to the reality of the muddy water. He sat in this state of simple, non-doing presence for a long time. At first, nothing seemed to change. The water was still muddy, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, a shift began to occur. The heaviest particles of mud, no longer being agitated by his frantic hands, began to drift downward. Then the smaller particles began to settle. The water at the surface began to lose its thick, brown quality, slowly becoming translucent. The traveler just sat and watched this natural process unfold. He was not doing anything to make it happen. He was simply creating the condition for it to happen by being still. After an hour, the water had become almost completely clear. He leaned forward, and there, on the still surface of the pond, he saw his own reflection with perfect, startling clarity. He saw the lines of fatigue around his eyes, the dust on his skin, but he also saw the deep stillness in his own gaze. And then, as he looked deeper, he saw something else reflected in the water as well. The vast, blue, peaceful sky above him. This simple story is a perfect map of the meditative path. The traveler is us. The muddy water is our mind when it is churned up by the cattle of our desires, our fears, our judgments, and our confusion. Our desperate attempt to figure it out, to force a solution, is the hand plunging into the water, only making things worse. The act of giving up the struggle, of simply sitting down on the bank, is the practice of samatha, or calming the mind. It is the practice of non-interference. It is the choice to be still and to trust a natural process. The gradual settling of the mud is what happens in our mind when we rest in this calm abiding. The heavy particles of our most intense emotions lose their energy and settle. The lighter particles of our distracting thoughts begin to quiet down. We are not forcing them down. We are simply allowing them to settle of their own accord. And the clear reflection that is finally revealed is vipassana, or clear seeing. It is insight. When the mind is still and clear, we see ourselves with a new clarity. We see the truth of our situation without the distortion of our own agitation. And we see something deeper, too. We see the sky reflected in the water, the vast, open, peaceful nature of awareness itself, which was there all along, simply obscured by the mud. The settling of the muddy water is the central metaphor for this entire process. It reminds us that insight is not a product of frantic thought. Insight is a fruit that grows on the tree of a calm mind. We cannot ripen the fruit by pulling on it. We can only tend to the tree and allow it to ripen in its own time. This requires immense patience and a deep trust in the process and in our own nature. Let us practice allowing our own water to settle. Now, come to a comfortable and still position. You do not need to do anything now. In fact, this is a practice of undoing. Bring your awareness to your inner world, to the pond of your mind, and just acknowledge its current state. Is it murky? Is it turbulent? Is it agitated? If so, that is perfectly okay. You don't need to change it. Your only job for the next few moments is to sit peacefully on the bank. Imagine yourself as that weary traveler. You have been struggling for a long time. You are tired of trying to fix yourself, to figure everything out. So, for these next few moments, you are giving yourself permission to completely give up the struggle. You are letting go, with each breath. Feel yourself settling onto the soft grass of the present moment. There is nowhere to go, nothing to do, and nothing to solve. You are just here, breathing as you sit in this stillness. You will notice the mud, the thoughts, the feelings, the restlessness. See them not as your enemy, but simply as sediment that is currently suspended in the water. That is all. Do not touch them. Do not analyze them. Do not try to push them away. Your stillness is the allowing. Your patience is the practice. Trust that the nature of mud is to settle when the water is not being stirred. Trust that the nature of your mind is to become clear when you cease your frantic mental activity. Just sit, breathe, rest. You may not experience perfect clarity in these few moments, and that is not the goal. The goal is to experience the feeling of stopping the struggle. The goal is to introduce yourself to the profound wisdom of non-intervention. With each moment you can rest in this state of patience. You are creating the conditions for your own inner water to clear. You are letting the mud settle in this clarity. A new kind of vision becomes possible. We begin to see the nature of reality itself more clearly, and what we see can be both beautiful and terrifying. We see the undeniable truth of constant change, of arising and passing away. We see that everything we hold dear, including our own lives, is like a house that is, in this very moment, on fire. When we allow the muddy waters of our mind to settle, a profound clarity emerges. We see ourselves and the world with a startling newness. But this clear seeing is not always comforting. In fact, it can be deeply unsettling, for it reveals a truth we spend most of our lives trying to ignore. It reveals the all-encompassing, undeniable reality of impermanence. In the stillness, we can finally perceive the constant, relentless flow of change that governs everything. Nothing is solid. Nothing is permanent. Everything is in a state of arising, changing, and passing away. Our thoughts, our feelings, our bodies, our relationships, our world, it is all in flux. We live as though we have all the time in the world. We live in a sturdy, stone house where we believe we can safely put things off until tomorrow. We will tell someone we love them tomorrow. We will forgive that old hurt tomorrow. We will start living our true life tomorrow. We exist in a state of comfortable complacency, playing with our toys and distractions, believing the foundations are solid and time is infinite. But the clear seeing that comes from a settled mind reveals a different, more urgent truth. It reveals that the house we are living in is not a solid stone fortress. It is a house made of paper, and it is already on fire. The great Buddhist scripture, the Lotus Sutra, tells a powerful parable. A wealthy man lived in a very large, old mansion. The house had only one gate for entry and exit. The timbers of the house were decaying, its walls were crumbling. One day, a fire broke out suddenly on all sides, and the house was consumed by flames. The man, the father, had managed to get outside, but his many children were still inside, engrossed in their games. They were having such a wonderful time with their toys and amusements that they were completely oblivious to the flames that were surrounding them. They did not see the smoke. They did not feel the heat. They did not fear the collapsing structure. The father stood at the gate, his heart seized with terror. My children, he thought, are in mortal danger. I must get them out. He called to them, "Children, come out quickly. The house is on fire. You will be burned." But the children were too absorbed in their play. They did not understand what fire meant, what burned meant. They did not heed his call. The father knew he could not run in and carry them out one by one. The house was too large, the fire too widespread. He had to find another way. He knew how much his children loved rare and beautiful toys. So he called out to them again, this time with a different message. "Children, come quickly. Outside the gate, I have wonderful treasures waiting for you. I have beautiful deer carts, goat carts, and bullock carts, more magnificent than any you have ever seen. Come out now, and I will give them to you." Hearing the promise of these wonderful new toys, the children were suddenly interested. They forgot their old games, and pushing and shoving one another, they all came rushing out of the single gate to safety. Once they were all outside and the house had collapsed into ash, the father, true to his word, gave each of them a magnificent, beautifully adorned bullock cart, far grander than anything he had promised. He used a skillful lie, a compassionate deception, to save them from a real and present danger. This is the parable of the burning house. It is not a story meant to create fear, but to awaken a sense of profound urgency. The burning house is the endless cycle of birth, death, and dissatisfaction in which we live. The children are us, blissfully ignorant of our own predicament, engrossed in the temporary, trivial toys of worldly pleasure, status, and distraction. The loving Father is the principle of awakened wisdom, and the fire is the truth of impermanence, suffering, and death. The house is not going to catch fire one day in the future. The teaching is far more radical than that. The house is on fire right now. This very moment is burning with change. The cells in your body are dying and being replaced. The breath you just took is gone forever. The world you woke up in this morning is not the same world that exists right now. To be blind to this truth is to be like the children playing heedlessly in the burning mansion. The skillful means, the upcure of the Father, is the path of practice itself. The teachings, the meditations, the promises of peace and enlightenment are like the beautiful carts. They are the compassionate enticements that call us out of our burning house of ignorance and into the safety of clear seeing. When we truly, deeply understand that our time is not infinite, that this life is a precious, fleeting, and unrepeatable opportunity, our priorities change. We stop putting off what is most important. The urgency we feel is not one of panic, but one of profound appreciation. It is the recognition that this moment is all we have. This breath is the only breath. This is our one chance to be kind, to be awake, to love, to forgive. The fire of impermanence, when we see it clearly, does not burn us, it purifies. It burns away everything that is non-essential, leaving only what truly matters. Let us sit with this urgency now. Settle into your body. Feel the life within it, the gentle thrum of your heartbeat, the soft rhythm of your breath. This aliveness is a temporary gift. I invite you to bring the image of the burning house to mind. See yourself inside, but instead of fear, I want you to feel the warmth of the fire. Feel it not as a threat, but as a reminder of the preciousness of this moment. Feel its light illuminating what is truly important to you as you sit within this gentle, warm fire of impermanence. Ask yourself a question, not to be answered with words, but to be felt in your heart. Knowing that this house is on fire, what do you most want to do with this one precious moment of your life? knowing that time is short. To whom do you need to express your love? What forgiveness do you need to offer, either to another or to yourself? What small act of beauty or kindness are you being called to create? What truth are you finally ready to tell? Let the answers arise not as a to-do list, but as a felt sense in your heart. A warmth, a pull, a resonance the fire does not tell you what to do. It simply asks you what you will no longer leave undone. It calls you out of the trivial games and into the reality of your own deepest values. The urgency of the burning house gives our life meaning and direction, and as we step out of the gate, saved by the compassionate call, we step into a new world. We step out of the world of me versus the world, and into a reality where such distinctions begin to blur. We are called to investigate the very nature of the self that we have been so desperate to save. We are called to listen for the sound of one hand. Stepping out of the burning house of our complacency, we are met with a vast and quiet sky. The urgency of impermanence has awakened us from our dream of separateness, our obsession with the small toys of the ego. In this new, spacious awareness, a deeper question begins to surface. We have spent our whole lives focused on the story of me, my problems, my accomplishments, my pain, my survival. But who, or what, is this me we have been so consumed by? Is it as solid, separate, and real as we have always assumed? This is the territory of non-duality, one of the most profound and subtle aspects of the path. It addresses the deepest ache of the human condition, the feeling of being an isolated self, a lonely subject in a world of external objects. We feel this separation in our very bones. It is me in here and the world out there. It is me and you. It is the pain of existential loneliness, the feeling of being a fragment in a fragmented universe. Our entire lives are structured around protecting and promoting this separate self. But Zen practice asks a radical question. What if this separate self is an illusion? What if the feeling of separation is the dream and our true nature is one of seamless, boundless interconnection? To point us toward this truth, which lies beyond the limits of logical language, Zen masters developed a unique teaching tool, the koan. A koan is not a riddle to be solved, but a question to be inhabited. It is a question designed to short-circuit the rational, dualistic mind, creating an opening for a direct, intuitive insight to dawn. And perhaps the most famous of these is the koan presented by the master Hokuin. We know the sound of two hands clapping. He said, "What is the sound of one hand?" Immediately, the logical mind goes to work. It tries to figure it out. Is it the sound of the wind? Is it silence? Does the hand snap its fingers? Does it make a fist? All of these answers come from the world of cause and effect, the world of duality. They are all based on the idea of one thing interacting with another. But the koan is pointing to something else entirely. The sound of two hands clapping is the sound of our ordinary world. It is the world of duality, of subject and object, of self and other, of birth and death, of good and bad. It requires two separate things to come together to make a noise. Our entire conceptual reality is based on this clapping of two hands. The sound of one hand is pointing to the reality that exists before it is split into two by the mind. It is pointing to the unified field of being from which all opposites arise. It is the sound of reality before we label it, before we divide it into me and not me. It is the sound of pure presence. It cannot be figured out by the thinking mind, Because the thinking mind is the very mechanism that creates the two hands in the first place. The cone can only be realized when the thinking mind gives up, when it becomes quiet, and we fall into the direct, non-conceptual experience of being itself. To listen for the sound of one hand is to listen for the sound of your own true nature. Before you called it me, it is to listen for the sound of the universe without a listener separate from it. This is not some esoteric, mystical state reserved for monks on mountaintops. It is the most intimate, immediate, and simple reality. It is always here. We just overlook it because we are so busy listening to the loud clapping of our own thoughts. This is a direct antidote to the ache of loneliness. Loneliness comes from the belief that you are a separate hand waving around in the void, looking for another hand to clap with. The realization of non-duality is the discovery that you are not one hand. You are the entire, indivisible reality in which the appearance of hands arises. You are not a wave in the ocean. You are the ocean, temporarily expressing itself as a wave. The feeling of interconnectedness is not something to be achieved. It is a fact to be realized. Let us sit with this impossible question now, not to find an answer, but to let the question work on us. Allow your body to be still. Let go of all the techniques and concepts we have explored so far. Let them fall away. Bring the cone into your mind. What is the sound of one hand? Don't try to answer it. Simply hold the question in your awareness. Let it be like a smooth stone in your hand. Feel its shape, its texture, as you sit with the question. Notice what your mind does. Watch the thinking mind rush in with its logical, clever answers. It's this, it's that. See these answers as the sound of two hands clapping. Acknowledge them and let them go. Gently return to the question itself. What is the sound of one hand? Let the question sink deeper than your thinking mind. Let it sink into your heart, into your belly, into your bones. Let it become a vibration. In your being, let the question begin to dissolve the boundaries of your perceived self. What is hearing this question? Where does your body end and the air in the room begin? The sound of the room is happening. The feeling of the breath is happening. The awareness of these things is happening. Is there a separate you in the middle of all this, doing the happening? Or is it all just one, seamless, unfolding event? Listen, not with your ears, but with your whole being. Listen for the sound that has no opposite, the sound that is always present, the sound of life itself, living through you. Do not strain, do not strive. Simply rest in the mystery of the question. Let it quiet your mind. Let it open you up. The point is not to solve the cone. The point is to let the cone solve you. To let it dissolve the illusion of your separateness, so you can fall into the boundless, peaceful reality of your own interconnected being. In that boundless reality, there is no one who is fundamentally lost. There is no one who is truly in exile. The feeling of being far from home is part of the illusion of the two hands. When we realize our true nature, we understand that we have never left home at all. The journey is not about finding some distant shore. It is simply about recognizing where we have always been. It is the journey of the prodigal self, finally returning home. As we sit with the great cone, the illusion of our own separateness begins to soften. The rigid boundaries we have drawn around our sense of me start to feel more porous, more transparent. This can be a liberating experience, a taste of the boundless ocean of our true nature. Yet, even as we touch this profound truth, the old habits of the mind often resurface. The feeling of being a flawed, unworthy, separate self can rush back in with a powerful force. We may have a glimpse of our interconnectedness, but we quickly fall back into the painful story of our own exile. This is the story of feeling that we have wandered too far from grace. It is the deep-seated belief that we have made too many mistakes, that we are too damaged, too impure, to ever be truly worthy of peace or love. We feel like an exile from our own goodness. We look back at our past, at our foolishness, our greed, our anger, and we believe we have squandered our inheritance of a peaceful heart. We live in a state of spiritual poverty, convinced that we have traveled so far down the wrong road that we can never find our way back home. We feel like a prodigal child, ashamed and unworthy to even think of returning to the home we so carelessly abandoned. This feeling of being a spiritual exile is one of the most painful forms of human suffering. It is a deep, internal alienation. But the path of awakening offers a powerful antidote. It tells us that no matter how far we believe we have wandered, no matter how lost we feel, the door to our true home is never locked. Our innate goodness, our Buddha nature, is not something we can lose or damage. It is an inexhaustible inheritance, waiting patiently and with unconditional love for our return. This truth is beautifully captured in a story that echoes the famous parable from the West, but with a uniquely Buddhist flavor. A young man was the son of a very wealthy and compassionate father. He grew up in a magnificent home, filled with every comfort and treasure imaginable, but he was restless. He grew tired of his easy life and became convinced that true happiness lay somewhere else out in the world. He believed his own inheritance was boring, and he longed for the thrill of making his own fortune. So he took a portion of his inheritance and left his father's home. He traveled to a distant land and, for a time, he lived a life of wild indulgence. He spent his money on fleeting pleasures, surrounding himself with fair-weather friends who celebrated his wealth. But his fortune was not infinite, and soon his money was gone. His friends vanished. He was left destitute, alone, and filled with shame. To survive, he was forced to take the most menial jobs, suffering great hardship and poverty. He wandered. For years, growing thin and weary, his fine clothes turned to rags. The memory of his father's home was a source of both comfort and excruciating pain. One day, his wanderings brought him, by chance, back to the region of his birth. From a distance, he saw the magnificent estate of his father. His heart leaped, but then immediately sank with shame. How could I possibly go back, he thought. I am a disgrace. My father would surely be angry. He would have me thrown out as a beggar. So he hid, watching the great house from afar, hoping to find some small job as a servant, just to be near the home he had lost. But the father had never stopped thinking of his son. Every day for years, he had watched the road, longing for his return. One day, he saw the ragged, forlorn figure of his son hiding in the distance. The father's heart was filled not with anger, but with an overwhelming joy and compassion. He did not wait. He did not send a servant. He hitched up his own robes and ran from the house. The son saw his father running towards him and was filled with terror. Believing he was about to be punished, he tried to run away. But the father called out his name, his voice filled with love. He caught up to his son and embraced him, weeping with joy. He ignored his son's filth, his rags, his shame. He simply held him. He ordered his servants to bring the finest robes, to prepare a great feast, to celebrate. For this my son was lost, he declared to the entire household, and now is found. He has come home. This story is our story. The magnificent home is our own innate Buddha nature, our inherent wakefulness, goodness, and peace. It is our birthright. The restless sun is our egoic mind, which is never satisfied. It believes that happiness is out there somewhere, in a better job, a different relationship, a more exciting life. It convinces us to leave the simple, profound richness of our own being and go searching in the world of samsara. And for a while, this search can be exciting, but inevitably, it leads to exhaustion and disappointment. We find ourselves spiritually destitute, filled with shame for having squandered our inner peace. The crucial point of the story is the nature of the Father. The Father, our true nature, is not angry. It is not judgmental. It does not keep a record of our mistakes. Its nature is pure, unconditional compassion. It does not care about our rags or our shame. It has only one desire: for us to come home. The journey home is the central metaphor of the spiritual path. We think we are on a journey of acquisition, of climbing a great mountain to achieve something we don't have. But in truth, we are on a journey of return. The path is not about becoming someone better. It is about remembering who we already are. Awakening is not about scrubbing ourselves clean so that we are finally worthy of returning home. The journey home is the cleaning. The moment we turn our intention back toward our own heart, back toward presence, back toward kindness, that is the act of coming home. And we are met in that very instant with the unconditional embrace of our own true nature. Let us make that turn toward home right now. Settle into the quiet presence of your own body. Let this be your safe harbor. I invite you to gently bring to mind a part of yourself that you feel has wandered far from home. A part of you that feels unworthy, lost, or ashamed. Perhaps it is the part of you that gets angry. Perhaps it is the part that feels lazy or undisciplined. Perhaps it is the part that is consumed by fear. Choose one of these prodigal parts of yourself. See this part of you as that ragged, weary figure hiding in the distance, afraid to come home. Feel its shame, its exhaustion, its belief that it is not welcome. Now connect with the part of you that is the Father, the part of you that is spacious, wise, and unconditionally compassionate. This is your Buddha nature, your awareness itself. It is the part of you that is hearing these words right now. From this place of vast, loving awareness, see that lost part of yourself and feel your heart fill, not with judgment, but with an overwhelming love and compassion. This lost part is not your enemy. It is your own beloved child who has suffered greatly in your mind's eye. Run to it. Run to that lost part of yourself with your arms wide open. Don't wait for it to clean itself up. Don't wait for it to apologize. Just embrace it exactly as it is. Wrap your angry self in the robes of compassion. Welcome your frightened self back into the warmth of the house. Prepare a feast for your lazy, undisciplined self. Say to these exiled parts, welcome home. I have missed you. You don't have to wander anymore. You are safe here. You are loved. Feel the profound relief of this inner homecoming. Feel the integration that happens when you stop fighting with yourself and start welcoming yourself. This is the practice of true self-love. It is the end of our inner exile. When we come home to ourselves in this way, our perception of the world begins to change. We no longer see it through the hungry, judging eyes of the exile. We begin to see with the clear, peaceful eyes of one who is at home in their own being. The world itself seems to shimmer with a new and simple beauty, a beauty that was always there, but which we were too busy searching to see. We learn to look at a simple flower and see not a concept, but a miracle. Coming home to ourselves is a profound act of integration. By welcoming the exiled, prodigal parts of our being with compassion, we cease to be at war with ourselves. This inner peace naturally flows outward, transforming the way we perceive the world around us. When we are no longer looking at life through the hungry and anxious eyes of a separate, wanting self, a new kind of vision becomes possible. The screen of our own thoughts and judgments, which has been filtering and coloring our experience for so long, begins to become transparent. For the first time, we can begin to see things as they are, in their own simple, unadorned, and breathtaking reality. We live most of our lives in a world of labels. We don't see a tree. We see the word tree, and our mind immediately attaches a whole bundle of associated concepts: wood, leaves, oxygen. That time we fell out of a tree as a child. We don't experience a feeling of sadness. We experience the label sadness, and our mind immediately launches into a story about why we are sad, whether it's justified, and how we can get rid of it. We are constantly living at one remove from reality. We are like people in a magnificent art gallery who are spending all their time reading the little description cards next to the paintings instead of actually looking at the paintings themselves. This habit of constant labeling dulls our experience. It robs the world of its freshness, its mystery, its magic. It turns a living, breathing reality into a dead collection of concepts. The path of awakening is a journey of learning to see beyond the labels. It is about cultivating the ability to experience the world directly, without the constant mediation of our thinking mind. It is the practice of seeing the suckness of things, a quality the Buddhists call tathat. It is seeing the flower just as it is, before we have named it rose and decided whether we like its color or its scent. There was a great tea master who was also revered for his skill in the art of flower arrangement, known as ikebana. His arrangements were legendary for their simplicity and their profound sense of life. They were not grand or ostentatious bouquets, but often consisted of just a single branch, a few leaves, and one perfect blossom, arranged in a way that seemed to capture the entire spirit of nature. One day, a young, ambitious student from another province came to visit him. The student had studied the classical texts on flower arrangement and knew the names of hundreds of different plants and the complex rules of composition. He came to the master hoping to display his knowledge and to learn some advanced secret technique. He was led into the simple tea room where the master was sitting. In the alcove, there was a new arrangement. It was breathtakingly simple. A single, dark, curving branch, and, at its tip, one small, white, star-shaped flower that the student had never seen before. It was so humble, so unassuming, yet it filled the entire room with a sense of quiet, vibrant peace. The student, wanting to show his expertise, immediately began to analyze it. A masterful use of empty space, he said. The line of the branch is superb, but the flower, I do not recognize it. What is its name, master? Is it a rare hybrid? The tea master looked at the young student, and then he looked at the flower. A gentle, enigmatic smile touched his lips. He did not answer the question directly. Instead, he said, "For our purposes. Today, it has no name." The student was taken aback. No name. Everything had a name. To name something was to know it, to categorize it, to possess it intellectually. An unnamed thing was a wild, unknown quantity. He pressed again, "But surely it has a designation, master, a botanical classification." The master's smile widened slightly. He poured a cup of tea and handed it to the young man. "Drink your tea," he said softly, "and just look at the flower. When you look at it without a name, what do you see?" The student, feeling a bit foolish, fell silent. He sipped his tea and turned his gaze back to the flower, and for the first time, he really looked at it. Because his mind was no longer searching its internal dictionary for a label, he began to see the thing itself. He saw the delicate, almost translucent quality of the white petals. He saw the tiny, intricate cluster of yellow stamens in its center. He saw the way the light fell on its surface. He saw the subtle, living pulse of its existence. He was not seeing the idea of a flower. He was having a direct, intimate encounter with the flower itself. It was no longer an object to be identified. It was a presence to be experienced. In that moment of pure, non-conceptual seeing, he understood the master's lesson more deeply than any book could ever teach him. The unnamed flower is the world. Our minds are constantly rushing to name it, to label it, to reduce its infinite mystery to a set of manageable, dead concepts. This is a survival mechanism, but when it becomes our only mode of perception, it separates us from the raw, vibrant, living quality of reality. The practice of suckness is the practice of mentally letting go of the names. It is looking at your partner and for a fleeting moment, letting go of the label husband or wife, with all its associated history and expectations, and just seeing the unique, mysterious human being standing before you. It is feeling the sensation of anxiety in your body, and for a moment, letting go of the label anxiety, and just experiencing the raw energy of it, the vibration, the heat, the tingling without the story. It is the practice of being with life so directly that you are left speechless. Let us practice with our own unnamed flower. Settle into your body. Into this moment, I invite you to bring to mind a very simple, ordinary object. It could be a piece of fruit on your counter, a pen on your desk, or even your own hand. For this practice, let us choose your hand. Hold your hand up in front of you, or simply bring your awareness to it where it is resting. Now you are going to look at your hand as if you have never seen it before. You are an alien from another galaxy who has just discovered this strange, remarkable object. First, let go of the name. It is not a hand. It is just ... this dot. Now look at it with fresh, curious eyes. Notice the color of the skin, the different tones and shades. See the fine lines that crisscross the knuckles and the palm, a unique map belonging only to you. See the shape of the fingernails, the little half moons at their base. Notice the way the light creates shadows between the fingers. Feel it. Feel the temperature of it. Feel the faint tingling of aliveness, the subtle pulse of blood moving through it. This is not the idea of a hand. This is the direct, living reality of it. Stay with this direct, non-conceptual seeing for a few more moments. You are not analyzing. You are simply perceiving. You are appreciating. You are having an intimate encounter with a small piece of the universe. This practice can be applied to anything. The taste of your food, the sound of a bird, the feeling of the wind. By letting go of the name, we let go of our preconceived ideas, and we allow ourselves to be truly touched, truly surprised by the world as it is. We discover that reality is infinitely more rich, mysterious, and beautiful than our thoughts about it. This direct seeing, this experience of suckness, is not a final destination. It is not a state we achieve and then possess forever. It is a moment-to-moment practice. It is a continuous unfolding. Awakening itself is not a grand arrival at a distant shore. It is the moment-by-moment process of opening our eyes to the beauty and truth of where we already are. It is the gentle, continuous unfolding of the lotus. We have journeyed together through a landscape of deep and quiet truths. We have learned to see the beauty in our cracks, to sit by the river of our minds, and to empty our cups to receive the new. We have learned to be the mountain, to listen for the sound of one hand, and to come home to the forgotten parts of ourselves. But as our journey for this evening comes to a close, a subtle anxiety can arise. It is the voice of the ego reasserting itself, asking, have I done it? Am I awakened? Now am I fixed? We approach spirituality with the same goal-oriented mindset we apply to the rest of our lives. We want to reach the destination, to win the prize, to get the certificate of enlightenment. We imagine awakening as a grand, final arrival state of perpetual bliss where all our problems vanish and we float through life on a cloud of serene detachment. This very image, this goal of a future state of perfection, becomes the final and most subtle obstacle to the peace that is available. Right now, it keeps us striving, straining, and measuring ourselves against an impossible ideal. It keeps us focused on a distant shore, preventing us from seeing the beauty of the water we are sailing on. The final wisdom of the path is a gentle and profound release from this striving. It is the understanding that awakening is not a destination to be reached. It is not a state to be achieved. Awakening is a process. It is an unfolding. It is a continuous, moment-to-moment opening to the truth of what is. It is not about arriving, but about becoming. There is no better symbol for this truth than the lotus flower. The lotus begins its life in the dark, thick mud at the bottom of a pond. This mud represents dukkha, the suffering, the confusion, and the messy reality of our unenlightened human lives. The seed does not fight the mud. It does not judge it. It uses the rich, dark nourishment of the mud to begin its journey. From the mud, the stalk of the lotus begins to grow, pushing its way up through the murky, unclear water. This journey through the water represents the path of practice. It is the effort, the discipline, the journey of purification. The stalk moves through the clouded water, always reaching for the light it has not yet seen, but which it instinctively knows is there. Finally, the stalk breaks the surface, and the bud opens into the clean air and the bright sunlight. This blossoming is what we think of as enlightenment, awakening. The flower itself is pristine, untouched by the mud and the murky water from which it came. It is a symbol of purity, beauty, and spiritual realization. But here is the crucial teaching. The lotus is not only a lotus when it is a perfect, open blossom in the sun. The lotus is a complete and perfect lotus at every single stage of its journey. It is a perfect lotus as a seed in the mud. It is a perfect lotus as a stalk pushing through the water. Its lotusness is present and whole throughout its entire process of unfolding. It does not become a lotus only at the end. It is a lotus. Always. Its blooming is not an arrival, but a continuous revelation of the nature it has held within it from the very beginning. So it is with us. You are not a pre-enlightened person who will one day, if you try hard enough, become an enlightened person. You are already a lotus. Your Buddha nature, your capacity for boundless awareness and compassion, is the seed that has always been within you. Your life, with all its messy, muddy struggles, is the fertile ground providing the nourishment for your growth. Your practice, your effort to be kind and aware, is the stalk, reaching for the light. And every moment of clarity, every flicker of insight, every act of compassion that is the unfolding of a petal. Awakening is not a future event, it is happening right now. This moment of awareness, of reading these words and understanding them, is a petal unfolding. The moment you notice your anger and choose not to act on it is a petal unfolding. The moment you feel gratitude for a simple pleasure is a petal unfolding. Do not dismiss these small moments. They are not practice for the real thing. They are the real thing. They are the blossoming of your true nature, happening in real time. This understanding releases us from the terrible burden of spiritual ambition. We can finally relax. We can let go of the need to be perfect. We can trust the process. Our job is not to force the lotus to bloom. Our job is simply to provide the conditions for its natural unfolding, to be present, to be kind to ourselves, and to trust the mud of our lives to be the perfect nourishment for our journey. Let us close with a final reflection on this gentle, continuous unfolding. Settle into your body one last time tonight. Let go of all effort, all striving. Imagine a small, tightly closed lotus bud resting in the center of your heart. It is safe, whole, and filled with a silent potential. This is your own true nature. Now, with your breath, offer this bud a gentle warmth and light. As you breathe in, imagine the golden light of the sun filling you. As you breathe out, imagine offering this warm light to the lotus bud in your heart. You are not forcing it to open. You are simply creating a warm, loving, and patient environment for it, and perhaps, just perhaps, you can feel one petal gently loosening, unfurling just a little. Not because you willed it to, but because it was its time. Feel the tiny release, the small opening. This is the awakening of this moment. It is enough. It is whole. It is perfect. You are the lotus. Trust your own unfolding. Trust the mud. Trust the water. And trust the light that you are reaching for, which is also the light that has been shining within you from the very beginning. Tonight, you have listened. You have sat in the quiet and tended to your own heart. You have journeyed home. The path does not end here. It begins again with the next sunrise, with the next breath. Carry this sense of gentle unfolding with you. Meet your life not as a problem to be solved, but as a lotus waiting to bloom. There is nothing left to do now, nothing to figure out. Simply rest. Rest in the quiet peace of your own unfolding nature. Allow the stillness to carry you into a deep and healing sleep. You are whole. You are worthy. You are, in this very moment, blossoming. Sleep well.